afternoon, everyone. This is the Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. It's May 8th, 2025. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of the Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until June 30, 2027. This meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder, those who'd like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 907-879-051#, or join the meeting on the link on the Microsoft Teams access on the town website. This is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, but despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue on the business item during the meeting when recognized by the chair. Before I give you the steps of how we proceed, I will ask that everybody shut off any gadget that makes any noise whatsoever. Please do that. And so the steps are as follows. We have a roll call of all board members. We ask if anybody participating on the call will make sure that they give us the last 4 digits of their name, of their phone number and their name so we can identify them. We have our hearing notice read by staff. On my right, Sarah Clark. You or your representative will present your appeal or application. Then anyone in favor will have up to 5 minutes to speak, and this is for the regular Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And I'll get back to the comprehensive permit in a moment. So there's 5 minutes for the regular meeting. If you have questions and you'd like to comment, the chair I will read or summarize all the letters that are received. Anyone against the appeal may ask questions, and that's also up to 5 minutes for our regular meeting. The application may rebut testimony. Board members will direct questions to anyone present, and then we hear further information and we close the public hearing. Once the public hearing for our regular scheduled meeting is closed, then we just deliberate among ourselves and usually we vote. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting we will close via verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. As I mentioned before, we are going to begin this meeting with something different today. We're happy to open up the comprehensive permit process for 0 and 1533 Main Street, and that has different rules. That will provide an opportunity for anyone that would like to speak to have up to 3 minutes. And today we're just opening the hearing because we're obligated to do so within 30 days of receipt. Going forward, these hearings will have their designated day all by themselves, and they will be once a month. And you will also be able to attend if you don't get to speak today, or if you'd like to wait, which may be a great idea because we have a whole meeting after this. So we would like to try to keep this first portion for maybe an hour and 45 minutes at the most, because we have a regular meeting. Our meetings go anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, so just be mindful of that. A lot of you have probably watched our regular meetings. And in any event, the comprehensive permit doesn't utilize our usual special permit criteria. You've probably seen us, and you also know about the town's bylaw. That is all not considered during these hearings. It's not a regular zoning board meeting. And I'm sure counsel for Penrose will talk about that to an extent and to explain that, because it's very important that the public understands that we're not going to go through our usual criteria and vote today. That'll be way down the line, maybe months. I think we have about 180 days in order to do that. But again, today we're delighted to open up the hearing and have some people actually provide 3 minutes worth of comment. we're going to each take no more than 3 minutes, even on our own board, to make some comments, and then we will all come back here next month and have a dedicated meeting for Penrose. So with that, we'll take a roll call vote of all board members to authorize this form of meeting, beginning with David Veach.
David H. Veach, and I approve this format.
Ed Acton, I approve.
David S. Nixon, I agree.
Paul C. Semple, I agree to this format.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Stephen D. DeBoer, I approve.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
And Randy Potash, I approve as well. So, let's see, we have approval of minutes, but we can do that later, I suppose, after the comprehensive permit portion. So, application number 25-034, Penrose LLC, 15 Milk Street, 16th floor, Boston, Mass. Whenever Sarah's ready to read the advertisement.
Application number 25-034, Penrose LLC, 15 Milk Street, 16th floor, Boston, Mass. 02109. The property is owned by the town of Chatham, located at 0 and 1533 Main Street, also shown on the town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9D, Block 4A, Lot 1, and Map 9D, Block 4, Lot 18. The applicants are requesting the grant of a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23, and 760 CMR 56, for the construction of 48 dwelling units in 9 structures. Also proposed is the construction of a management building. The applicants are requesting the grant of various waivers from regulations promulgated by the Chatham zoning bylaw, Chatham Water and Sewer Department, and other local regulations. The properties contain 128,492 square feet, 2.95 acres, in an R20 zoning district.
Welcome. Please identify yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rio Sacchetti. I'm a senior developer with Penrose. And I'm happy to present our 40B comp permit submission for 1533 Main Street. This proposal really began a year ago with the issuance of an RFP from the town. They currently own the site, and they were looking for a development partner to come in and build workforce and affordable housing at the property. We responded to the RFP in early 2024. We were eventually selected as a designated developer of the site. And since then, we had entered into a land disposition agreement with the town. And that was late 2024. And since then, we've been refining the design of the project in anticipation of coming to you here today, which is a continuation of the process we've been doing since originally responding to the RFP. So we have a very well experienced team on this project. I call it our all-star team. This is Union Studio as the architect, and we have Paul Atman here with us tonight. Horsley Witten is the civil engineer. And we have Joe Henderson, who's up here with me tonight as well. And Crowley Cottrell is the landscape architect. And Mark is here with us as well. This project is being managed by Penrose's New England office. Our New England office is active on the Cape. We have our Village at Nauset Green project in Eastham. We're in the process of completing another project, our Cape Cod 5 redevelopment project in Orleans. We recently completed a 2-phase project in Wareham as well. Penrose generally has over 27,000 homes built to date. We've been around for over 50 years. And the project being presented to you tonight, which is mixed income, which includes workforce housing and affordable housing, is really our bread and butter. One thing that separates a Penrose project is our management company. Penrose Management Company, which we call PMC, is our business arm that maintains and operates the properties after they're built. And they're actually active on the project from conception, and we work with them on the development side. And then eventually when it's built and they take over, the project is being managed and run by Penrose employees. And that's a full-time property manager, the full-time maintenance technician, and there's also a resident services coordinator. And that helps ensure that there's some accountability on the Penrose side, that what is anticipated to be a high quality development remains a high quality development all through its lifespan. And our specific approach on this project was to post RFP was to listen to the community and the stakeholders to further refine a plan that will be well received by the town of Chatham. We have engaged, since being designated developer, we've engaged with multiple town departments, town staff, different associations and boards to try to further refine something that will be a project that the town of Chatham will be proud of. And one of the things we pride ourselves in, that, you know, we're very transparent. There's no bait and switch. The plans we're presenting to you tonight is what we fully intend to build. This slide just shows an example of some of that stakeholder engagement we've underwent since being designated developer by the town. And so this is something that we think represents that our collaborative approach, and it's also something that we intend on maintaining and going forward with. This isn't the end of our engagement with stakeholders. Okay, at this point, I'd like to introduce Paul Atman from Union Studio, the architect, to present the design of the buildings.
Thank you, Rio. Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Atman. I'm a principal at Union Studio Architecture and Community Design. We've been in practice since 2000 with two offices. Primarily, our home office is in Providence, and we have a small 5-person firm in Philadelphia. We are a mission-oriented firm and our mission is to use the power of design to enrich lives and improve communities wherever we work and live. And really on the forefront is bringing integrity and community with our clients to the projects that they envision. We have extensive experience here on the Cape Cod, where we have a lot of projects, both small and large in this scale. We've done a lot of advocacy group and research with the Cape Cod Commission to outline better strategies for Cape Cod's housing crisis, looking at where and how to develop smartly and with appropriate density for the communities that are on Cape Cod. These are a couple examples of projects that we've done and are realized. On the left is Park Home in Newport. This design building is a basis of what we're proposing tonight. It's a 2.5-story volume on the front end with a short tail of 2 stories off the back. The Park Home image here, can I see the pointer, is much longer than what we're proposing. Our proposal is actually truncating the building right about this line, so it's not as long. Then a little bit closer to home here is Sea Captain's Row in Hyannis, which is workforce housing. Small scale, multiple buildings in a site near the ferry terminal that is 2.5 stories and 1 to 2 bedroom units. As Rio mentioned, we've been working with the town and meeting with stakeholders since August, and we've incorporated a lot of the feedback that we've heard and gotten along the way. We've added additional parking along the roadway. There was a lot of concern that there wasn't enough in our original proposal. We've located accessible parking spots appropriate to the accessible units. There's 14 of them in the neighborhood, along with a management building. Then we've repositioned the 2.5-story buildings further away from adjacent residences. So we've strategically taken the 2-story smaller townhouse buildings and put them in by the along the property lines that are closer to the residences on the back and south and west sides. We've decreased the overall length of the management building that was fronting Main Street. There was concern that that was too long of a facade along that Main Street and blocking views into the neighborhood. We've increased the road to accommodate vehicle access and primarily emergency vehicle access from 22 feet to 24 feet. We've identified all the existing trees that are mature enough to be saved, and we've incorporated them into our design. Mark will talk a little bit about that later. We've identified potential roof locations for solar panels throughout the neighborhood, and we've also incorporated different siding materials, details, and window patterns on buildings to bring more variety to what might be the same building multiplied, used a couple times in the throughout the neighborhood. We've then looked at how we can differentiate to that to bring a little bit of variety. I should point out that we are not looking at color yet. We did get a lot of comment about the white on white is not appropriate, so we understand that, but we didn't want to start on the color by committee exercise too soon. I'd like to walk you through the proposed site plan. On the plan north is Main Street, and we are proposing a very simple vehicular circulation in and out of the site with ingress and egress at 2 curb cuts, two-way traffic around, and that is organized around a common green where Mark will talk about that also a little bit, with a playground and passive recreation space and existing trees that are being saved. The turnaround here is for emergency vehicle access so that they can do a hammerhead turnaround and easily egress the site when they come into the site. All of the buildings have multiple front doors, and I should point out that each unit has a front door to the exterior. So that allows us to really activate the street and the network of sidewalks throughout the site. For instance, there's 2 front doors here facing Main Street, and then the other 4 apartments have their own door along a common porch that face the sidewalk. So we've been very careful to position those front doors to give a front for each of the buildings, and maybe in some cases 2 fronts. This is for Main Street, and then this here is for the internal roadway of the neighborhood. Mark will talk about the landscaping, and Joe will talk about the civil engineering a little bit more. This here is a view from Main Street looking at the proposed neighborhood with a 2.5-story headpiece of the 2 apartments here. Now I have to reverse my orientation east, and then here on the west side. This here is the entrance in and out on one side of the management building, which is 1 story, and then the other entrance here. And you can see that the proposed buildings are in the background behind the landscaped trees. The management building is what Penrose proposes on developments of this size, and if there's questions about that, Rio can talk about it, but it's very simple. There's a common room here for the residents to use. There's a small fitness room. They share bathrooms, and then the majority of it, about half, is management office, as well as maintenance for a maintenance shop and a maintenance storage. Penrose manages all their properties, and if there's any questions regarding that, Rio could talk about that. This here is this is the smaller building type. This is the 3-unit townhouse. We are asking for a waiver in terms of a building height. We know that the limit is 30 feet. We're proposing building heights from 30 to 34.9. So we're just a little over, but they're 2-story buildings as the code, the ordinance anticipates, and also 2.5 at the very highest level. These are the 2-story buildings. This here is a 6-unit with 2 units on the ground floor and 4 small 1-bedrooms on the second floor. This here is the larger it's still 6 units, but what I mean is it's 2.5 stories on one end of the building, but 2 stories on, let's say, the tail end. The proposed materials are asphalt shingle, so for roof shingles, vinyl windows that are super insulated for our energy efficiency and Energy Star certification. There's lap siding on the one front part of this building and then shingle on the back side. We've arranged and proposed different window fenestrations. So in some places where there's a double window in that same building down the road, that might be split to a pair separated. So there's little nuanced differences that we're working into the design. And then this here is a sort of a comprehensive list of where the building heights exist around the site and where that 2.5-story buildings are. They're at buildings 1, 2, 9, 8, 5, and 6. And so that gives the range of the building heights in red of what we're proposing. And then the variance, the waiver that we're asking, you can see here. So they range from 1 foot to 4'11". And I'd like to turn it over to Mark from Crowley Cottrell next.
Thank you, Paul. So looking back at the site plan, we have provided sidewalks around the entire community so that it's walkable, as well as some locations for bike storage and lush planting for the streetscape. So there are street trees proposed along the internal street as well as Main Street. In the community green area, we're proposing a few more kind of community-centric assets. So there's these images show a little bit of that character. So we have some raised garden beds in this area, as well as a small playground and a community gathering area. So this would be a pergola with some chairs or tables for community meals and gathering, maybe birthday parties. There's also a larger lawn area that we're envisioning as a play space or just places to walk your dog. Site lighting is important for safety. We are showing, this is a picture of the pedestrian pole fixture, so this will range from kind of 12 to 14 feet. It's small in scale, and then around the community buildings and the community areas, we have these lower bollard lights that help to provide just enough light to be able to traverse the site. This plan here, which looks like just a lot of numbers, is a technical plan that's calculating the amount of light that's being produced by these fixtures. And the important thing to note is that we are at the lot lines, we're at 0. So we're not throwing any light over to abutting properties and keeping the light where it's needed in the areas where people will be traversing. We've worked really hard to preserve as many mature trees as possible. So there are a few on the periphery to the west and in the southeast corner. And the majority are in this community green area. So we've been able to preserve a kind of statement evergreen tree as well as some big maples. And then there's this remnant hedgerow that we'll be keeping and kind of pruning for sightlines. This goes a long way with helping the community feel, that it fits in, that these trees are beautiful and they'd be really hard to install this size. So we're glad to keep these. This shows our planting strategy. So we have, as I mentioned before, there's street trees along all the roadways, but we're also proposing a substantial buffer planting on the edges of the property, as well as lush kind of streetscape planting of shrubs and perennials. And so these pictures here are just some examples of what that could be. You know, we're going to keep everything kind of suited to the Cape and for interest throughout the year. I'll hand it over to Joe.
Hello, good afternoon. Joe Henderson with Horsley Witten Group. We're an environmental consultant firm out of Sandwich. And I'm going to walk through some of the site grading and utility components of this project. So here you'll see this is the site plan. Paul touched on it earlier a little bit. There's two entrances off of Main Street. What I wanted to touch on here is just that we, as part of our due diligence for the project, we do look and coordinate with the fire department. So we have run a program where we show that a ladder truck can circulate the site. So that's been completed. As far as dimensional requirements for the site, Andrew will touch on some of the waivers a little bit later, but we do meet the side and rear setback requirements. However, the front, we do ask for a waiver. All the parking is either 90-degree or parallel parking. So all those spaces are 90-degree or 9 by 18 feet, and the parallel spots are 8 by 22 feet. Road widths are all 24 foot and wide, as Paul had mentioned earlier. We are locating two, let's see if I can get this to work, two dumpsters on the site, one on the east and western portion. I'm going to switch now to the grading here. So as far as our approach to the grading, the site does slope from Main Street to the south. So we've done our best to match that as much as possible with our proposed grading. We use a GSI or LID type method for our stormwater management. So we incorporate tree trenches in this particular case, where we treat the water quality volume, which is typically about 1 inch of rainfall. And then the larger storm events will go into these underground chamber systems located throughout the site. We are proposing to meet the stormwater management policy, and we've submitted as part of the application our stormwater management approach that outlines all the calculations and everything that goes along with that. As far as site utilities, there is sewer available in the street. There's 3 sewer stubs along Main Street. One is actually for the existing home. We're proposing a combination of gravity and a pump station for this. So there will be a portion of the site that'll flow by gravity out to the street, and then another portion in the lower area that will require a lift station that will then pump to the gravity system and out to the street. The lift station would have a redundancy in its pumps. There would also be ability for backup power to, in case of emergencies, that would be taken care of. The slope along the back, it slopes up slightly to the abutters, and I think around the west side we are slightly lower, and we match grades around the east side predominantly. I think that's all I was going to touch on, and I think I'll turn it over now to Andrew.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer, attorney assisting the project. I had submitted a legal memo to the board, and I won't go through all of it because I know what we hope to do today is, after our presentation, give time for initial comments, questions from the board and the public before we're continued, because and so I know we're introducing things today. There'll be a lot of questions, I'm sure, and details that we may not hit today, but we're happy to provide answers to those or to discuss them whenever.
And we have your memorandum, thank you.
Great. So this, as the chair had mentioned at the beginning, this is a project under Chapter 40B, Sections 20 and 23. So it's different from a 40A project, which is what you usually look at. So this comprehensive permit will be providing affordable housing. And in this case, 25% of the apartments, 12 of them, are going to be deed restricted at 80% of the area median income, which is what's required for a comprehensive permit. However, in addition, in the land disposition agreement that the applicant has entered with the town, they have agreed to ultimately enter into an additional affordable housing restriction with with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities that would restrict 32 of the 48 apartments at 60% of area median income and 16 of them at 110% of area median income. So anything over 80% restriction is considered workforce housing, and anything under 80% is considered low and moderate income, deed restricted. It's all deed restricted, but that affordable housing at a lower level. The 60% AMI level will provide an even deeper ability of affordability, and it all gets into what incomes a family, whether you're an individual or family with or without children, can earn to qualify for these units. Chatham has made a strong commitment towards providing affordable housing. Goal 7.1 of the comprehensive plan talks about improving opportunities for the area's low and moderate income households to find safe and decent affordable year-round housing units. And the housing production plan is focused, quote, on addressing the critical housing needs in Chatham today through a diverse suite of goals and strategies that holistically promote housing affordability in the town. In addition to the town being very supportive of affordable housing, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that's why we're here under 40B, has set a mandate that all towns are supposed to try to hit 10% of their year-round housing stock as affordable. Chatham right now stands at 4.81%, and this redevelopment will increase that number to 6.11%. So it is an increase getting closer towards the state goal. All of the units, however, and this is how it helps the goal as well, in a rental community, all of the units count towards the town's subsidized housing inventory with the state. If this was home ownership, only the deed-restricted 12 units would count. In this case, all 48 units are going to count, no matter their varying affordability limits, because it is a rental project that's being proposed. There are 3 requirements to have a 40B before you, and which have been met here. The applicant needs to obtain a project eligibility letter from the state, which we have, and there's a copy in the file. They have to have control of the property, and through the land disposition agreement, Penrose has control and an interest in developing the property. And they have to create a limited dividend organization, which is a single-purpose entity to operate the project, which will be done as is done on these projects. You sit in the stead of everybody locally for a 40B. So you are the Board of Appeals, you're the Planning Board, you're the Board of Health, you're the Conservation Commission, you're the Historic Board, and you're also the Cape Cod Commission. All of those are local boards by operation of law that you're reviewing the project for. And that's why when I talk about waivers later, some of the waivers are not zoning waivers, because any other waivers that are necessary has to come from you, because you are that permit granting authority. And the legal standard that you look at is also different from 40A. In this case, 40B requires approval of a project when you determine that it is consistent with local needs. And when a town is under 10% of the limit, there's a presumption of consistency with local needs, subject to public health, safety, and welfare, which is something a planning board and you also always look at, is to make sure that, as you've heard, the utilities and the traffic and the fire safety, all of that needs to be met, obviously, to have a safe and vibrant community. The Board of Appeals, even under 40B, is allowed to condition a project so long as the conditions do not render a project uneconomic. And that is it's a legal standard that is fact-based. But what the big thing about a 40B is that it's a balancing test. It's a flexibility that the Board of Appeals, standing in all your steads of the other local boards, is balancing the need for affordable housing with all of those other areas: zoning, environmental, historic, planning. In this case, there are no wetlands involved, so that's not something that's impacted, and the project will connect to the town's sewer. So there's not a septic system on the property that we'd be looking at. As we go through the process, not just today, but going forward, we submit that this project, we will demonstrate to you that it is and will be consistent with local needs, that it will not have a material detrimental effect on the character of the neighborhood or the town, and that it's worthy of approval. And as I said, I'm not going to go through all of the items I have in the memo. I know you will read that. But one I wanted to mention that has not been referenced yet is the applicant submitted a traffic impact assessment for the project, and there's a finding in that study that quote, "The project will not result in a significant impact or increase on motorist delays or vehicles queuing at the Route 28 Barnhill Road roundabout over anticipated future conditions without the project," that's the no-build condition, "and with all movements at the intersection expected to continue at a level of service A, where level of service D or better is generally defined as an increase in average motorist delay of less than 1 second and in vehicle queuing of up to 1 vehicle." So that is also in your packet that you'll be looking at. There is the traffic study done to demonstrate that we believe there will not be a negative impact. I've worked with Penrose before, and everyone on this team has, and they create quality, affordable housing. They have great management experience with it, and we think this is going to be another development that will be proud for them and for the community. And that gets us to waivers. So there are provisions that no 40B can meet. And the main one is density. When you have a 40B, you're increasing density over what's otherwise allowed in zoning. That's the whole purpose of 40B. And so you always need a waiver. Waivers under 40B are different from variances. The 40A Section 10 variance criteria of hardship based on soil condition, shape, or topography they're not part of the analysis. Under Chapter 40B, the question is, without the waivers, what would render the project uneconomic and therefore not consistent with local needs? So as you're looking at these waivers that I'm about to just introduce, the question as you go through this process will be, are they necessary to allow the project to move forward so that the affordable housing can be developed and provided? And we respectfully believe that will be the case. I won't go through the details of the variance of the waivers, which are changes from the bylaws, but I want to just hit the topics of them now. Happy to go through anything in detail, but given time.
Topics is good.
Okay, so the topics are use and density. As I said, if you can't have use and density waivers, you can't have multifamily use at this density on the property. Height of the buildings, there was a list up there with broken down by specific building. We don't have to get into that now. We can talk about that, but that's another waiver that's being requested. Building coverage, the proposal is for more coverage than you would normally allow under 40A, so that is a waiver request. Parking numbers, instead of 2 spaces per unit, requesting 1.8, and in Penrose's experience at all of the thousands of units they have, they believe that this is parking that will provide sufficient capacity not only for the residents, but also for visitors. In order to meet the side and rear setbacks and buffer where more of the residential properties are in the back, the property's been front-loaded. So there is a request for a waiver from the front building setback and the front parking setback. And those are in order to allow the bigger buildings on the property to be pushed more towards the front. We added a waiver request if required from a septic system certification. I don't know if that's necessary because it's on town sewer, but I wanted to be complete, at least for this initial stage. There are also 3 waivers from Chatham general bylaws dealing with, there are 5 structures on the property now, and the applicant submitted a project notification form to the Mass Historical Commission, and they returned a response that they didn't have any concerns with historic or archaeological assets on the property. There was historical study that was done on these buildings that were there, and but the waivers that you need to still, because you're standing in the stead of the Historic Commission, because the buildings are, 3 of the dwellings are over 75 years old, we're asking for a waiver from the demolition delay bylaw, which is something that the Historic Commission would normally look at. We're also requesting waivers to the extent necessary from the Chatham Historic Business District Design Guidelines and Procedures requiring a certificate of appropriateness, and a waiver, if necessary, from the same regulations for the removal of a dwelling over 75 years old and the construction of a new dwelling and related improvements in this district. So again, we're in the HBDC, so we need those waivers in order to proceed with the project. The final waiver is, as I mentioned at the beginning, technically it's from the Cape Cod Commission Act. Because they are deemed a local board by state law, all of their regulations that might otherwise apply, because this is a development more than 30 units, aren't applying. We're before you for the 40B request, so again, we're requesting a waiver from that as well. With that, I'm going to turn it briefly over to Rio just to summarize. We look forward to your questions today, both from you and the public, so that we can take them in and before the next meeting, answer as much as we might be able to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so when you say questions, what we had envisioned is that there'll be 3 minutes for each person that we have time for to comment, not back and forth questions.
Correct.
Does that make
Questions,
sense?
yeah, that's what I meant, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Questions, comments, we're getting your feedback from everybody.
Right,
Yeah, We'll
absolutely.
take it all in, and then
Yes,
we'll
yes.
respond
And
at
you'll
the
take
next
notes
meeting.
on what they say and ask, and, yeah.
And you as well, whatever
Yeah, and
comments
they'll
you all
feel,
might
and
have.
then they'll feel heard. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so with
And then,
that.
if I might,
yeah.
if we could just have one last slide.
Absolutely.
to Summarize.
All right,
Thank
I'll
you.
just quickly wrap things up with just some takeaways we want you to have after this presentation. This was a carefully designed project from the beginning in collaboration with the town. It was the town invited us in, picked our proposal, and we entered in a land development agreement with the town to build these. We've made, I think there were some earlier slides that showed us, different meetings we had with different boards and different stakeholders. I just want to emphasize that all those meetings have resulted in real changes that have been incorporated prior to the plans you see in front of you. Also, we hadn't really touched upon this before, but we have a sustainable design. Solar ready, we have a study done showing almost all the buildings can support solar. Passive house aligned, we say that we're building to passive house standards. We're not necessarily maybe going after the passive house certification, but it will be built to that level of green building. And other than that, we have, this is a combination. There's a workforce housing, 16 units, and then the remainder are the affordable housing units. So it's a mixed income, it's not 100% affordable. And lastly, Penrose has a strong track record of delivering these type of developments. We invite you to see some of our other projects in the area. We're proud of the projects we've built here, and we think that there's a through line through all the projects we've done in New England of being high quality and well-maintained. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I will announce that we have asked all required commissions and boards to provide us with comment, and we don't have them quite yet, and we didn't expect to. We'd like to have those by the June 5th meeting, and that would require them being filed by June 1st. And we'll read those at that point in time, whatever we receive. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do from those who are in the audience, and you can go to the microphone in the middle versus up there. And you gentlemen can sit down because this is not going to be a back and forth. So people actually can either go to the podium for up to 3 minutes and the clock will be on, or you can go to the middle. And who's raising their hand? I see that gentleman right there first, and then we'll go to Attorney Riley after that. And then, yeah, and then we'll take the public. I'm just going by whoever raises their hand first. Welcome.
Thank you. Mike Schell. I am on both the Affordable Housing Trust Board and the Select Board currently. And I want to just give you, I don't presume to give you any advice or anything else with respect to the technical aspects of your project, of your responsibilities. I just want to say that this process began with town meeting in 2021. Town meeting authorized, I think it was about $1,350,000 for the acquisition of the Buckley property. At that time, it was not the entire parcel that you see here. It was the 3 quarters that are defined by to the east all the way to the back, from the front to the back, and the west is the back quarter. Almost immediately post that, that acquisition, which took place, I think, in early '22, mostly the housing director and community development commenced a process of reaching out to the community, getting input as to desires with respect to public housing, affordable housing, designs, landscaping, really the whole business. In October of 2023, the Affordable Housing Trust had the board converted from what it was before, which was the Select Board +2, to the current formulation, which is 2 members of the Select Board plus 5 members of the public with expertise. Almost immediately after that conversion, the Affordable Housing Trust Board entered into negotiations to acquire that last quarter to give us which is the northwest quarter of the parcel. I'm not an expert, but based on hindsight, I'm not sure this project could have got done if we had not acquired that and created what is now the 3-acre parcel that Penrose is proposing to develop. The process itself of getting to a developer was also a lengthy.
Just so you know, sir, I'm just giving you your 28-second
Oh,
warning.
okay, well, I'll be real quick then, sorry. Very quickly, this was a project that was evaluated and recommended by both boards, not unanimously, but both the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust Board considered it. There were 3 proposals, and it was deemed that Penrose was the best proposal. We've come a long way, we've got a long way to go, but this is a really important project.
Thank you so much. And next, I did see Attorney Riley next, and after that, I'm going to go to somebody online, because that's the third hand I saw with the letter E. And then we will see who's next. Yes?
Good afternoon, Bill Riley, on behalf of the Levitt family, who are abutters to the property, and also Eastwood Companies, which owns some property to the rear. One of the things about this project is the front half of the property is zoned commercial. The back half of the property is zoned residential. And the Levitt property in particular is a very nice, cute, small house, and it backs up to the design of a 35-foot tall building. And so what both the Levitts and Eastwood Companies would like to see is a recognition of the fact that the back half of the property is residential, and that they would bring the height of the buildings down, whether they did multiple smaller buildings or just took these buildings and made them more or less compliant with our 30-foot height, so that they wouldn't overwhelm the residential properties that are located in the residential zone. It would be very greatly appreciated. I know you got a long day. I'll be back. Thank you.
Let me just ask you, sir, since you represent Rick Levitt, we do have a letter from him. Could we waive that for today, or do you need me to read it? And we do have it's online, and there are several photos.
What do you want to do?
I'll read it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
E, online, please state your name. You can put your hand down, and you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Elaine Gibbs. Yes, I've been following this for a long time. I'll try and make it brief. I understand we'll have another opportunity.
You have
The
3
public
minutes,
is-
so that's
Yeah,
that.
the public has a lot of problems with this, the design, and I'm just going to go over mine. First of all, the size of the buildings. We can't, online with these prints, blow it up enough to see the dimensions. But many of those buildings, there's 9 of them. Some are 50 feet wide, some are 70 feet wide, and some of them are 30 feet high. To put that in perspective, if you look at the community center brick section, it would be about 2/3 the size of the community center, the brick portion. They're large. So secondly, I have a problem with the landscaping. I have visited Nauset Green, which is about 4 or 5 years old now, and the plantings there are still what I would refer to as totally immature and saplings. The other thing is, in their packet, they're using deciduous trees and shrubs. That is not going to screen the development from the street in any fashion. So I would like that discussed where, you know, we have substantial trees along the main road for privacy for the people who live there as well as for the look of it. And I think the buildings are huge. The other thing is the mentioning tonight or today was there's 2 dumpsters on the property. I would love to know, is that all the tenants would have, that they have to walk their garbage to one end of the property or the other? One of my biggest concerns is the parking. In their RFP, Penrose said that they were intentionally keeping the number of, the ratio of cars to units low to encourage walking, bikes, and public transportation.
Just respectfully, you're on your last 50 seconds.
Okay, there are no food stores, no pharmacies, insufficient parking, too many electric vehicle spaces that I'm sure many of these people cannot afford, and there's no assigned parking and there's no guest parking. And I think that's going to be a very big problem for the people who live there. So there's more, but I will defer it until next time.
And there
Thank
are
you.
also more meetings. Thank you so much. Who's next? I see that gentleman right there. Attorney Faber, I presume?
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Farber, and I represent Matthew and Peter Swenson. They're the owners of the property directly on the east, the abutting property. And my concern also, or my client's concern, is with the height of the 6 buildings, the building C type, all of which are well over 30 feet in height. And the reason they're over 30 feet is because they contain 2-bedroom apartments on that 3rd floor. And if those were to be eliminated, the roofs could come down, and that would make it much more in keeping with our bylaw, which has existed, I don't know when the 30-foot limitation was imposed, but it was many years ago. The other thing I'd just like to point out today is that a Board of Appeals never wants to outright deny a 40B application, because on appeal to the Housing Appeals Committee, the burden shifts over to one question, and that is, has the town met its requirement up to the 10% of affordable, or I should say low and moderate income housing? If, in fact, what the board should be doing, I believe, is looking to approve the project with conditions relative to size, height, siding, parking, all the various conditions that a zoning board of any type would look at. And as the chairperson said, you will be receiving comments on those matters. In particular, if there were to be an appeal, and certainly the question doesn't have to wait until then, is when a project, especially a rental project, is approved, the question is, what conditions can be imposed without making the project uneconomic? And that looks into the financial conditions that will follow the approval. In other words, over the next 10, 20 years or whatever, what sort of return will the developer make, and what conditions would impose on that so that it would become uneconomic? So it's a very open question, and on that question, the burden, the case law is very clear, the burden falls on the developer to prove the conditions render the project uneconomic. So I would encourage the board, as the chairperson said, to conduct a full study and be focusing in on that question.
Thank you so much. And we do have town council, if that soothes you at all. And yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Ella Levitt, a direct abutter to this proposed subdivision. I've lived in my house for more than 25 years. This subdivision is the largest development in Chatham in 50 years. The stated purpose of Chatham's protective zoning bylaw is to maintain compatibility with neighboring properties and to avoid creation or minimize adverse impact on neighboring properties. The site is not adequate or suitable for what is proposed. The size of structures is not compatible with our residential neighborhood. The impact of scale, siting, and mass of these large structures on our neighborhood's character will rob many of us of our privacy, both while in our homes and in our yards. Large, tall, 3-story, multi-family apartment buildings looming within a few feet over our homes and our yards will ruin the quiet, peaceful enjoyment of our homes and our yards. Noise, light, and litter from dumpsters, parking lots and roads placed a few feet from our property line are not compatible with neighboring property uses. The town's RFP for affordable housing development specified that this large subdivision respect adjacent properties, have internal traffic flow, and a mix of building types to meet a variety of household sizes and needs. These requirements were ignored by the developer and by town officials when selecting the developer's proposal. The developer's proposal does not respect adjacent properties. It does not have internal traffic flow or a mix of building types, but is a formula business approach to affordable housing in Chatham. I ask you to place conditions on this application that adhere to the town's protective zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Yes, sir. You can stay right there if you'd like. Yeah, save yourself a trip.
I need to get my steps in. I'm Henry Marcelli. I live at 32 Jesse's Landing, which is not in a butter, but I'm across the street. We vacationed in Chatham for 30 years. We bought a townhouse across from Knott's Landing. If you're familiar with that on Main Street, that contains 2 affordable units. We were contiguous to an affordable unit. Okay, the folks there were wonderful. They owned the property. They still are there. We have subsequently moved and built a house in Jesse's Landing. Okay, but that's an example of affordable housing that's worked in Chatham very well. You drive by it, nobody knows. It doesn't look different. It doesn't look big. It doesn't look overwhelming. It doesn't look like an apartment or a barracks or a dormitory. It looks like a normal house. Okay, that's one of my concerns. I've attended both of the meetings, the planning board meetings, the joint meeting with affordable housing, and expressed my concern with the size of the buildings. They're going to be overwhelming. Okay, we're talking 35 plus or minus feet. That could be 38. It could be 37. It doesn't fit. It's just too big. This is the main entrance for the town of Chatham coming in. Is this what we want to have as a representative of our first shot at a big affordable housing project? I just implore you to listen to some of the folks that have talked here and to try to do the best you can. And the fact that we have the roadway, West Chatham Neighborhood Roadway proposal for the town meeting, okay, there's obviously a concern about the size and the scope of work in this region, of which this property abuts. It's in the region. It's right there. So I would ask you to take that consideration as you look at it. I know it's a difficult task. I understand Penrose was selected by the town, and they're trying to maximize their opportunity on the project. I get that. I understand that. But please, just think about the rest of us living around here, as was spoken before, that we're in a community, and when we introduce this type of a project and this much stuff, there's going to be a lot of concern. There is a lot of concern on my part and on my neighbors' parts. So please take that in consideration, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Buckley, executor for the Buckley family estate, and of course we sold this land to the town for that reason, and it wasn't because, I should say that, because there was a request for proposal. I had been thinking of this property as having a affordable housing, middle housing character for decades. I grew up in Chatham, but I spent 25 years in Washington, D.C. suburbs. My wife and I started a family. We bought a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath house. That was a townhouse. That looks a lot like the townhouses right across from Knott's Landing. So yes, I've been thinking something like that would fit there. And so if I had to do it, I would have put it in townhouses. And it's because it's a little more, and also with a mix of ownership. I live right now. For the past 15, 16 years, we bought a affordable housing unit right behind Pate's, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and I was hoping that something like that would be available there. So there'd be a variety, a mix of home ownership and rentals, because I'm a little concerned with the 70% preference, that it'll start out at 70% and then some people will move away. Oops, don't have to do that anymore. And then 5 years from now, it might be 17% locals living there, so to speak, people who already were, living and working here. So that's my concern there. I would like to say that one thing, and I realize there's going to be more meetings, and so we can throw out our suggestions and so forth. I would suggest that you might have a format that would allow people to ask clarifying questions so they could understand what's required, what's nice to have, what's need to have, and then they can make their suggestions with the idea, as opposed to just throwing ideas out and then finding, oh, can't do that. So I would just say questions and then comments separate instead of mixing it all together, because I think that would actually be more productive. And yes, I have 37 seconds left. And the other part is, I will throw out one thing, is that it does seem that a lot of developments, they love lights, because, we have to have safety. But the thing is, it always looks like the place is awake. Like it's, I would like to not drive past there and at 11 o'clock at night and see the whole place lit up. And the lights I saw there, I was hoping it could be the ones like we have on Main Street in West Chatham that point down. And I don't know what it's called, or tulips or whatever they're called, but the idea of pointing it down and it doesn't shine up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Anybody? If not, I'm going to start reading. Yes, sir. Brian Phillips, welcome.
Well, thanks. I guess here we go. I think I'm the only one in this room that actually needs affordable housing. So I'd like to thank Penrose. They've done a great job, putting this thing together. But in all honesty, I think by no means, shape, or form is this project right for the town of Chatham. It's way too big. It's going to put way too much strain on our infrastructure. Those are things that we really need to consider, especially all the other, towns that are working off of our aqueduct. They're all putting up these huge developments, and we really need to, consider what the environmental impact is going to be on these, on our drinking water, on our sewer. In one of the meetings, I saw that Penrose needed to on-deed restrict 30% AMI after 50 years. But I didn't see any, when the lawyer was talking, he didn't say that there was going to be any 30% AMI in this building, just the 110, 60, and 80. And the 30% AMI is reserved for people with disabilities and seniors on a fixed income, I think primarily. There's just so much wrong with this project. It might be too late to, fix it, but I just really urge this board to do the best they can to make sure this is a project that the Chatham wants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to take 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes to comment at this juncture? I don't see any hands up in the, yes, ma'am, please. And I'll just remind everybody that all these materials are on the town website, and a lot of answers can be had there. Yes, please.
Yes. Thank all of you for your efforts for the affordable housing, which I support. However, I'm with everyone else that has talked about the heights. I live on Jesse's Landing, which abuts that, but I'm,
Did you say your name, ma'am?
oh yes, Cynthia Fusey. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, the question I have as a resident here in Chatham, which I love, I've been also coming here for 30 years to vacation, and I was fortunate in 2017 to buy my home here. However, you know, I watch the school buses, and on Main Street, I see on other properties, which are over stores, and kids have to cross the street. There's no crossing guards. I don't know if the buses are going to be able to go around there, and the amount of apartments that are going to be there, I have to think there's going to be families. So I'm concerned about that, because you're going to have to either do crosswalks, have crossing guards. I mean, it would be a disaster. I've seen so many near accidents where little kids are running across the street because they don't pull in to those other areas. And, you know, granted, in the summer when we have more traffic, it's different, the schools are closed. But that's something for all of you to think about. And I think that's very important, because I would have to say, if I was younger and had children, I would want crossing guards there, because I've seen near accidents all through the winter with that situation. That is something for all of you to think about. And I just really believe that with everyone's statement, I love the townhouse idea. I don't know if any of you know, like in West Chatham, there's Levi Paths, where they bought, it was a nice cul-de-sac, they bought affordable housing. Everyone that I talk to in town, like, I support our local retailers, and everyone that works here, that commutes here, and even people that work at the Chatham Bars Inn that have to commute here, they all want to buy homes here. They don't make a lot of money, they live off tips and everything else, but they want to buy homes. I think we need that mix. I also sent an email to the board, and I hope you would consider that. But I'm really concerned about someone getting hurt on Main Street, the kids with the school buses. I would definitely think of that.
Do you want me to still read your letter, or
No,
are you
you
willing?
you can read my letter if you want. You know,
What if I want to waive it? Would that be?
you can waive it, but mostly I put in exactly what I wanted to say.
Yes.
But that's because I saw a child almost get hit the other day. The only thing
Okay.
that's not in my letter is the school buses.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment here live on Chatham TV? No? Anybody online that I am not seeing? All right. So I'm going to go on now. The law provides that I can summarize these letters, so if they seem awful long, I will take the liberty to do that. So we have a letter from, first of all, from the Judith Giorgio, our health agent. She tells us on 5/6/2025 that she reviewed the plan for 48 multifamily complex with a total of 86 bedrooms. The property is adjacent to sewer and connection to the sewer is proposed. Since this is a 40B project, I believe local regulations limiting sewer flow based upon property size is not required. The flow required would be 9,460 GPD for the residents, plus a small additional flow for the community building. Approval of the flow and design of the sewer is within the W&S department, water and sewer. The property will generate large amounts of waste. Ensuring dumpster areas are properly enclosed and sized appropriately will help maintain cleanliness and prevent overflow and pest issues. Additionally, integrating well-structured waste reduction and recycling programs can support sustainability efforts and minimize environmental impact. I would suggest appropriate exterior lighting and parking and common areas for safety. Next, we have a note from the Conservation Commission, and they tell us on April 29, 2025, that they are not required to make a filing on this topic. So then we have a note from Amy Walker, 8 Barn Hill Road in Chatham on May 8th, 2025. I am writing it as a abutter, nearby property owner, to share thoughts about the development at the late Joe Buckley's land. My biggest concern that the development does not address the needs of those in lower income brackets who want to own property in the town they love and work in, and that the Penrose development flouts the zoning restrictions that keep Chatham the unique place that it is. The size and scope and density seem remarkably out of place. Our neighbors built a slightly too tall house and it sticks out in the neighborhood. I'm also concerned after reading the lawsuit brought against Penrose for mold and moisture problems in a recent development. The dissent among town officials have been devoted to the town also causes concern that it's all rental development is not the best decision for the town. So she's referring to the dissent of town officials, not the majority that have said that. Finally, I'm curious if whoever that is, can we please shut that down? Finally, I'm curious if the Freedom of Information Act applies to communications in this development agreement, if anyone has made that request. Next, we have a note from Wendy and Dave Perry, 24 Jesse's Landing, May 7th, 2025. They're writing to express their concern and objection to the proposed affordable housing apartment. They are concerned about the size and scope, too large for a 3-acre site. The buildings in the center are too tall at 35 feet and far too close to the neighboring homes, only 17 feet away. My family's been coming to Chatham for a week-long summer vacation since we were children, and we decided to invest in the community and support Chatham by purchasing our home here. We understand the need for affordable housing, but this developer is not vested in the unique character of Chatham, and that is troubling. Next, we have a note from Deborah Finnerty, and that was on May 7th, 2025. She's a party of interest in regard to the application, and she lives at 28 Jesse's Landing, a full-time resident who objects to proposed buildings in this application to receive waivers and exceed town zoning restrictions of 30 feet. The size of the buildings don't conform in any sense to the neighborhood. If you have a minute, drive down our street and visualize what those buildings will look like. Additionally, it seems outrageous that we can be under water restrictions in town, yet feel like it's appropriate to add 48 units to an already stressed system. There are viable solutions to the affordable housing situation on this property, but jamming all these rental units into such a small space is unconscionable. Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, we have a note from Anthony Incognoli, May 7th, 2025, and he tells us that he lives at 40 Barnhill. The proposed development of 48 apartments and 10 buildings in our neighborhood is too large and exceeds Chatham zoning requirements. During the summer months, we have a large amount of traffic in the area, and this will only add to the problem. The area consists of single-family residents and light commercial, retail, restaurants, and affordable housing project of this site is something we as residents want in our neighborhood. We don't want in our neighborhood. The noise and congestion will create less than a desirable place to live and ultimately cause home values to drop. Cynthia Fucci from 71 Barnhill Road, who just spoke, but she also told us on May 6th, she's a longtime resident, and she commends this board for addressing the important issue. And she'd like to express a concern shared by many in the town that the buildings, that the proposed zoning change to allow for taller apartment buildings above 2 stories, introducing higher structured, could significantly alter the charter of our community. I respectfully recommend that any development on the design parcel be designated to align with the town's unique identity. Cottage-style homes, townhouses for purchase, and a limited number of low-profile apartments could offer a balanced solution. On May 5th, 2025, we have a note from Errol Fagioni, 37 Jesse's Landing, writing to urge reconsideration of the current proposal. The planned development exceeds our existing zoning height restrictions and an excessive parking area designed for 89 vehicles will strain local infrastructure and negatively impact traffic, noise, and safety. Furthermore, the visual dominance and scale of such large structures will diminish the quiet residential charm and historic appeal that makes Chatham unique and desirable. I strongly endorse the thoughtful compromise proposed by our neighbors advocating for smaller scale, single-family cottage-style homes. This alternative approach would meet affordable housing objectives I request that the Zoning Board of Appeals insist upon substantial modifications of this proposal. Steve McLaren, 92 Barn Hill Road, on May 5th, says he's writing in regard to the development. Quite frankly, I'm stunned at the size and scope of this development in this little part of town. I am certainly a fan of affordable housing, but this goes way far and does not fit in our particular neighborhood at all. This dense housing project will create a permanent and dramatic change in car traffic in the neighborhood, not to mention, for those of us in close proximity to the development, it'll have a significant negative impact on the perception of the neighborhood in terms of our home's value. Then we have a note from Patrick O'Brien, May 3rd, 2025, 4 Youngs Road. I am the property owner of 4 Youngs Road and a neighbor of the proposed development. I want to express strong opposition of the proposed development of the former Buckley property. This proposal grossly exceeds the current neighborhood density and dimensional requirements. The number of buildings and units are clearly excessive. The granting of permission for such would be injurious to our community and have a detrimental impact on my property and the greater neighborhood. Stephen Doyle, May 1st, 2025, Stephen and Bridget say that they're located at 25 Jesse's Landing, and they are not against affordable housing that's needed in Chatham or on the Cape. The objection is the size of the buildings proposed and it's the fact that it's not in character with the wonderful town of Chatham. We have mom and pops in town for burgers, not McDonald's or Burger King. Cottage-style affordable housing is the way to go to keep Chatham the wonderful city it is, not tall buildings that it's out of character with the town of Chatham. John and Michelle Hochter, 41 Jesse's Landing, on April 26, 2025, say they're writing to express serious concerns regarding the 10-building, 48-unit development. They begin by saying, like many residents, they fully support the creation of affordable housing. They understand the importance, and however, the need that they noticed that is not met is with respect to scale, character, and long-term vision for Chatham. The current proposal seeks a variance and concessions. We are very concerned with increasing allowable density in 5 homes to build 10 buildings and 48 apartments, exceeding the town's maximum height limit of 30 feet, with several buildings reaching 35. The development of this magnitude would be out of scale. Chatham's appeal lies in its careful preservation of the traditional coastal village atmosphere. Affordable housing must be part of our future, but pursued in a way that fits the existing fabric of a small town. For these reasons, I hope the Board of Appeals deny variances and concessions, and that would be that. Rick Levitt, I have his letter here, which is also long, and I'm going to summarize it. It also has photos, and the full version is online. Rick Levitt tells us on May 2nd, 2025, that he's an abutter to Penrose on Main Street and that it does not comply with criteria specified in the town's RFP, the developer's own claims, and with Chatham's protective zoning bylaw. Chatham's RFP specifies that the site design respects adjacent properties. In its response to the RFP, Penrose stated, "Designed to remain consistent with the community character and iconic Cape Cod style, the project will blend seamlessly into the neighborhood." This claim may be accurate for the Meeting House development, but it's not accurate for Main Street. This is a historic district, and it's surrounded by traditional residential neighborhoods, and it does not blend seamlessly into the neighborhood. The Meeting House is distinctly different. My home and all other smaller ones, 1.5-story, single-family homes surrounding the southern and western half of Main Street site are just feet away from 3 large, 6-unit, 3-story, multifamily apartment buildings, and he gives us exhibits that you can also see online. Because of such close proximity, most of us will lose privacy. We all experience substantial and detrimental changes to the neighborhood. The scale is equally as important as style. This standard was adopted by Chatham Select Board. limiting the scale of affordable housing development adjacent to existing traditional residential neighborhoods on Old Harbor Road. He's talking about a case study that also can be more elaborated online if you read it. Let's see, and he's making comparison to an Old Harbor Road project that may be underway. A uniform standard for affordable housing development should apply throughout Chatham. It's far too large and fails to meet Chatham's protective bylaw. Chatham's RFP specifies that the Main Street development site design have an efficient, safe, and internal traffic flow. The proposed traffic flow is neither internal or efficient. Portions of the street and on-street parking, together with dumpsters, border our residential neighborhoods. Parking has been increased from Penrose initial proposal by nearly 50%, 62 to 89 spaces. There is a 50-foot wide U-shaped asphalt strip dominating the subdivision, unlike any other residential neighborhood in Chatham. Chatham's RFP specifies that the Main Street development building designs have a mixed type of buildings to meet a variety of household sizes and needs. There is no meaningful variation in size and height in this project. I'm going to end that here, and again, this is online with exhibits and photos if you're interested. So that concludes the received correspondences, and now we're going to go to the board, and we're only going to take up to 3 minutes as well today if we, and you can put the timer on if you want, you can time us. And I'm going to start with David Veach, and he knows the drill.
I'm happy to defer or delay any questions that I might have until subsequent meetings. I feel like I need to immerse myself a little bit more in some of the history of what came before us, so.
If anything jumps out at you, though, this would be an opportunity to tell Penrose.
Well, the only thing, I mean, so there were a number of comments, and we've heard comments respecting the height of the buildings. And so the only question, I don't know if this would be a question or not, but.
Just comments.
Comment. I don't know. I did take a look, after having seen the letter, I took a look at some of the drawings and noted that, at least on 2 of the types of buildings, 3 of the buildings that are there, the roof pitch appears to be, I think, like a 14 and 12 pitch. That's a little more than is generally customary in Chatham. I mean, we'll sometimes see more than a 12 and 12, but that's not the standard generally. So there might be some possibilities to do some lowering of ridges and without compromising on the layouts or in the interior of the spaces, and I'd like to have them explore that. And then on the larger buildings, again, there may be some room in looking at ceiling heights and roof pitches. It looks like the pitch is a little bit lower on there. It's like a 11 pitch on the gables and a 8 pitch on the main part of the roof. But there may be some ways to shorten the building somewhat. That said, I'm not sure, with what they're asking for, I'm not sure if it's a big ask. Actually, the buildings themselves, I think the tallest ones from the first floor go up to maybe 32 feet. But of course, we measure from average grade. So that adds, in some cases, adds a few feet to the height.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Ed Acton, please go ahead.
Sure. I have a number of questions, but what I'd like to really talk about is maybe the community building. It's got the largest footprint on the property. Chatham is in a crisis for affordable units. We're not really in a crisis for community buildings. I would rather see, that area used for more units or potentially move some of the units to that area. That would be the one thing that stuck out to me.
Thank you. Mr. Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess to sum up my concern, and we go through this every week, it's the impact of this on the neighborhood. And I just want to, and that's a simple statement, but that's what we struggle with every week. So, just to make a quick list of things that I'd be concerned about, density, height, the parking, that's going to be a huge conversation in itself. What kind of vehicles are we dealing with anyway? Also, I have a bunch of questions on the financial aspect of this. Mr. Singer briefly went over it, but apparently there's going to be another agreement between Penrose and, I don't know if it's the Housing Trust or the Selectmen or whatnot, because as it is now, it seems to be open-ended. The last thing we want is to have a scenario where we approve something and then several years from now, they come back and say, well, you know what? We couldn't rent those 48 units. We just couldn't do it. We couldn't find enough customers. So we'd like you to waive this. And all of a sudden, well, 200%. Is that what you're looking for? I don't know. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. So I need to see the specifics. And I'm sure Mr. Singer can help me on that. And then another issue is if you read on and it talks about monies and where it goes and all that, and all of a sudden things jump out at you, 0% interest. You mean the town's going to get 0% interest on a loan or money that's owed to it? And then, oh yeah, and the payback is 40+ years. And there's no payment during those 40 years. So maybe I've misread it. But boy, have I got a real question. Imagine having a zero loan and you don't have to pay a dime. For 48 years, you're probably going to be dead. You won't owe a thing. So, and the last thing is, boy, I'd sure like to see some sort of units that are for sale. I would really like to see some sort of a mix in there. Because we have a double-edged problem, and maybe the folks at Penrose just don't want to do it. Okay, tell me why and all that. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Virginia Fenwick.
Yes, I have several that were on Mr. Nixon's list. So I have a lot of notes here, but I'm going to try and condense it to a few categories. So height is definitely probably the number one thing we heard the most about from the folks here today, letters written in, and in general, the other hearings. There were at least, I think, 21, I counted, other hearings across the planning board, historic, HBDC, et cetera. So, so I think height is a big one, and I think that is, I mean, I don't, well, let me connect. So height and then historic is another one. I don't know if the higher pitch that Mr. Veach noted was because there was maybe some attempt to try to capture that Greek revival, but they don't look Greek revival. What I would like to see, I think they're very attractive, but it is on the historic lane, which is why HBDC is involved. So I think it's the style as well as the mass. So it's the height, and then I think the historic element could be a little more Cape Cod and Chatham style. So I think like what elements, one of the questions I would have, which isn't necessarily right now, but what specific elements are here in these renderings that are Cape? Is it the Cape style? Is it Greek revival? Is it, and maybe it's a combination, but I don't really see historic in the homes. They're very attractive, but I think, so height is more about the scale, historic is more about the style. I also really appreciate, and now I understand what all those orange ribbons were randomly throughout the property. They were marking, if I understood it correctly, some of the trees that they wanted to make sure that they kept. What's interesting is the plan laid out is very symmetrical. So I was wondering, how can such randomness of these special trees fit in there? But there was one exhibit that I really liked that showed, I think it was 8 trees that they're keeping. So mature trees, hopefully. I didn't really zero in on the yellow or the orange tag trees on the site visit, but I think it's worth revisiting that. I think that is so important to this, so that doesn't look like it was just clear cut. And I know that trees will be planted, but, and actually, I think it was maybe Mr. Rio, you in one of your hearings mentioned, the best time to plant a tree was probably 40 years ago, but also it could be tomorrow. So I understand that we're gonna have a lot of small trees planted and shrubbery at some point, but maybe a little more than just 8 of the current trees, if that's possible, because I do understand we have a little bit of a symmetrical layout. So landscaping, which I think is Mark, screening in the back would be very, very important to add to that. Evergreen screening is what I think I heard.
I think you might have hit the 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, but a really important one is this rental versus ownership.
Okay, that ship, I think, has sailed. So, well, we'll talk about that offline.
I do want to talk about that. I think
we can
that's
talk
really-
about it, but the ship sailed.
It's
Steve.
very important.
Hi, well, most of my concerns have already been sort of addressed, but, you know, the biggest one to me is the density, because I think if it was a lower density, it would have an effect on the building heights, and you might not need as many units, or it could actually affect the type of building being built. Instead of these larger buildings, maybe, you know, I've heard cottage community tossed around a bit. There's one just down the road at White Pond where there's a lot of little tiny houses over there that seem to fit in pretty well. So there could be a mix of these larger buildings maybe out front and some smaller buildings in the back, because the larger buildings in the back are, I think, going to have a very detrimental effect on the people who live on Jesse's Landing and Barn Hill Road. I don't think it's fair to those people. I sort of question the parking traffic study that was done in November, and then there was some sort of formula applied that predicted what the traffic would be like in July, August, and September. And I would like to see another study done during the summer months. No one actually came out this and said it, but there's going to be a 50-foot wide road, a U-shaped road throughout this complex, because if you have the perpendicular parking that's 18 feet wide, the road is 24 feet wide, and then you have parallel parking that's 8 feet wide. I think that comes out to be 50 or pretty close. So there's going to be a very large road, circular road that goes around this property. Also, back to the traffic study, it said something about the possibility of a drop-off area, either for CCRT buses, commuter buses, or for school buses. I don't see that anyplace on here. And I question the need for a community center. We have one in town. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to use this community center, or just the folks that are living here. I don't think we need it, and I think that amount of property could be used for something else.
Lee Hovey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just start by saying in concept, I think this is really awesome. I think it's a great location for it, but like others on the board, I struggle with a number of things. The height of the buildings, they're all very attractive, but I personally would like to see more variety, maybe some one-story cottages was thrown out. I think the parking is going to be tricky as well. If they max out all of these apartments on all of these beds, there's a potential to have 172 people in this development. It probably won't happen, but I'm just saying, I think, and I also agree with the assigned parking, because I think that gets tricky if there aren't assigned parking spaces. I happen to live near Oyster Heights condominiums off of Depot Road, and I think it's Chipcart. And they have 5 buildings that are actually really similar in style and size there. And it works, I think works very well. It's matured, the trees are large, but there's only 5 buildings there. And I don't know, I think maybe, I've never been inside any of them, but it's attractive. And And it just kind of struck me as being similar to what we're trying to do here. Let's see, I don't know if Penrose would consider reducing the number of units slightly, reducing the height. Those would be my concerns for now.
Very good. Paul Semple.
Well, I share a number of the concerns that my other board members have mentioned, but let me just raise two issues that I wanted to check on. As I understand it, this is our first hearing under the 40B process, and it starts a time frame of 15 days within which what's called the safe harbors conditions under which the ZBA can deny a comprehensive permit can act and be covered by safe harbors. I don't know that any of the safe harbors would in fact apply to Chatham, but I'd like to make sure that that option is not available and we don't simply slide past it without recognizing that we need to act, if we do need to act.
We have town council here, so we'll get to that right
I
when
figured
you're
that
done.
was the case.
Yes.
The second issue that I wanted to raise that I did not see in the proposal is that the letter from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, March 20th, does indicate that the approval indicates the proposed plan includes rental units which are restricted as follows: 7 units at 30% AMI. I didn't see any units limited at 30% of AMI in the proposal. So I didn't know whether that affects the approval by the executive office or whether there's been some change in that. So I thought we should keep that in mind.
Well, thank you, and I'll just give my 2 cents, and then we'll go to Jay Talaman, Town Council, to answer that question that Ms. Semple asked. So I also agree with the height issue, and I thought it was impressive that Mr. Veach didn't just say that he's concerned about it, but he gave a method to address that with regard to roof pitch. So I'm hoping that we can get an answer to whether or not that's a viable way to deal with the fact that people are clamoring about the height, and maybe there's a simple way with roof pitch that could be addressed. I'm also concerned, I'd like to see all the spaces marked, because if you ever go into Boston, you'll see that people, they like to name what space is theirs, whether it really is or not, and they'll put, a lounge chair, and there's a lot of, I can tell you, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I have seen fights over that, over spaces, and so I think it's very important that the spaces be marked very precisely, whose is whose. I'm also concerned about traffic, and that I think there should be a right turn only option for anyone coming out of there, because if you try to take a left in Chatham anywhere during the summer, it's impossible. And I'll never get out of my street, which is very close to there. So I would like to see that right turn only. And that's it for me for now. And I'm going to go to our council. He's going to tell us how we did today so far and answer Paul's question.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Welcome.
Thank you. So everyone's doing great. I think this is what we want to see during the first session, kind of framing of issues where we can get the developer thinking about things and hear from the public. We still have some procedural things to talk about and before you wrap up for the day, but we'll get to that in a minute. As to the question that was raised, I'm not aware of any of the safe harbors applicability here. There's a number of safe harbors. One of them is 10% affordable housing, of course, which we don't meet. Another one is recent progress towards the achievement of affordable housing by 0.5%, 1%, or 2% per year. I don't think we achieve any of those as well. Another safe harbor is large project size. It doesn't meet that. So it's keyed to the size of your community. So if this was a 300 unit project, it would certainly exceed what the town would have to deal with in any at any one time. So it doesn't meet that safe harbor. There is another safe harbor regarding land area minimums in terms of how much of your land in town is dedicated to affordable housing and the percentages there. It's a very technical calculation And I'd rely on the planning staff, but I don't believe we could likely meet that here in Chatham. It's a difficult computation to make, and towns have not been particularly successful in making that. So I don't think that there's any of the available safe harbors here. It's always good to check on that because you do, as was noted, have only 15 days, but I just don't see that as being an available possibility for you all here.
Okay, so we were going to do a motion, ask for a motion to continue to June 5th at 2 o'clock, where we will now, after that, we'll have dedicated meetings. Council, is that the next step?
It is. One thing I suggested, Randy, in some pre-meetings that you and I had with staff is that perhaps in between now and then, staff, along with a designee from the board, perhaps yourself, be empowered to work with the applicant to set up peer review so that we're not using the board's valuable time going over resumes for particular engineering firms or traffic review, and we can take care of that in between. So maybe before, it's just my suggestion, but before we adjourn or continue for the day, that the board take a motion to authorize staff to work with you or another member of the board to secure that, all that peer review, so we could get going and communicating with the applicant on those technical issues, including traffic, architectural, and the like, which all have been raised today.
Okay, thank you. So can we get a motion that our board authorizes Mr. Nixon and myself to work with staff with regard to what council just said?
I will move to authorize both Randy Potash and David Nixon to act as our liaison to act on behalf of the board for those purposes.
David seconds and votes yes.
Go ahead, Ed.
Ed Acton votes yes.
I vote yes.
Paul?
Paul votes yes.
And Ginny votes yes.
We're all going to vote on this, just because I'm not sure.
Lee votes yes.
And Steve votes yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's unanimous. And now, Paul, could we get a motion to continue to June 5th, 2 o'clock, and we will have dedicated hearings for this application going forward?
I move to continue the hearing to June 7th.
June 5th.
Excuse me, June 5th, 2025, and to continue on with monthly meetings thereafter.
Thank you.
David seconds and votes yes.
Ed Acton votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
I vote yes.
Steve votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we are adjourned with regard to this application, and we will be back after a short break. Thank you, everyone. And we are back. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting portion, Thursday, May 8th, 2025. And we're going to start with approval of the minutes for the meeting held on April 10th, 2025. Paul?
I will move to approve the minutes as published for April 10, 2025.
And Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All
Hey,
votes
Randy,
yes.
I actually have a, sorry.
Oh, yes,
I do
please.
Yeah, it looks like on page 9, Lee Hovey was listed as being present, but she wasn't here that day, and Ed Acton isn't shown there on page 9.
Okay, so we'll make that correction. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I'll move to approve then with those changes.
And Dave Veach seconds that and votes yes.
Mr. Nixon is going to probably vote.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Jeannie votes yes.
As do I. That's unanimous. All right. So 106 Barcliff Ave, 25-016. When Sarah's ready.
Application number 25-016, 106 Barcliff Realty Trust, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 106 Barcliff Avenue, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15G, Block 9, Lot 28A. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The proposed dwelling will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 860 square feet, 2%, and the proposed building coverage is 3,535 square feet, 8.4%, where 10% is the maximum allowed. The law is non-conforming in that it has 0 feet of frontage where 150 feet is required. The lot contains 42,178 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Attorney Riley, welcome. We know that this has been here before, and it's been withdrawn. Could you tell us what's new in this application?
Sure. Sarah, could you put up the renderings we submitted with our application, please? What a handsome building. So what we've done since we were last here, there was concerns with the size of the building, even though we have 42,000 square feet. But the applicant, Jill Boudreau, who's here today, also worked hard with her designer, and they've reduced the gross floor area by 1,200 square feet. We've reduced the building coverage from 8.7% to 8.4%. We've increased the sideline setback on the west side, 25 feet to 29 feet. We have had conversations with our neighbor to the east, who was represented by Mr. Litchfield, and so we've reached an agreement where we've agreed that we'll plant a total of 16. That's the sketch plan that Bill sent over. So we're proposing 6 arborvitae along the property line. They've asked for a total of 16. We've agreed to that, and we're happy to have it be a condition of the approval if you think that's appropriate. And I know that Bill has submitted a statement that with this condition, his client has no objection to the proposal. I'll be happy to run through the criteria briefly.
We don't need you to, but thank you. Because you submitted written copies, and we're good.
Okay.
So at this point, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known.
Attorney Litchfield is
Litchfield.
on Teams.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've never appeared before you in this matter, but I had a couple of other things to do today, unfortunately, and I recognize you've had a long day. But as Mr. Riley said, the applicant has been very helpful and cooperative and has agreed to plant and maintain those trees. So if the board will include a condition that the 16 arborvitaes be planted and maintained along the boundary line approximately as shown on that plan. My clients have no objection, and we thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? Seeing none, I'll read the correspondences. We have a note from Judith Giorgio from 5/6/2025. She reviewed the plan for the property. It's large enough to support a 4-bedroom dwelling in accordance with the Board of Health nitrogen loading regulation. The attic storage space will not be allowed to be finished because it has sufficient privacy to be considered a bedroom. A 5th bedroom would require the installation of an IA nitrogen-reducing septic system. The permit for a conventional system for a 4-bedroom dwelling has been submitted to the Health Department for our review. Next, we have a note from Sarah Waters, 4 Gladen Lane, May 7th, 2025. She wants to say a word of support for the Bedros family application. That Jill Bedreau, recently residing at 106 Barcliff, moved in next door to me on Gladden Lane last summer. She's made several attractive changes, as well as some useful improvements to her Gladden Lane house, and I can attest to her good taste, not to mention her good sense. Jill shared with me the plans for the proposed new dwelling at 106 Barcliff. I looked at the color, renderings, and the outside of the house, as well as the inside plans. The house is lovely. It appears to be a classic Chatham residence in keeping with the character of our neighborhood, sensibly sized, appropriate for the lot. I am a Summit resident. My late husband and I have been here for 25 years and seen a lot of renovations and new houses go up. I love the look of the neighborhood, and it would be a welcome addition. Thomas Campbell, 64 Barcliff, April 27th, says that he's writing to express his support for the application to demolish the existing home and construct a new residence at 106 Barcliff. As a resident located on 64 Barcliff, I've carefully reviewed the application and the design and the architectural style of the surrounding houses are in sync. I believe the new construction will be significant improvement to the neighborhood, and he urges that we approve it. Then we have a note from Attorney Litchfield. We don't need to read that. And is there anybody here on Microsoft?
Well, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I'm concerned with is the question of plant and maintain. So I don't know what I don't want is if a future owner at some point doesn't maintain one of the trees or decides he only wants 15 trees instead of 16 trees, that it would not be a zoning violation. I don't know.
Then they would probably have to come back. So there's that.
Okay.
All right, is there anybody else that wishes to, where are we? No. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Virginia Fenwick.
Hi, Mr. Riley. Sarah, could we go back to the first picture that was shown? Because when I saw that picture, I thought that that was a new rendering.
It is.
Okay, but that doesn't match with what this is. There's two what?
That's the same picture.
No, oh, okay. It just looks so
Well,
much.
those are the pictures. I submitted the pictures with the application.
Okay.
Sarah put them online. Or did I put them online?
So,
okay.
The
There are
same.
two pictures, just at different angles,
Okay.
slightly different.
Okay, thank you. So, the reason I asked about the picture is because that did look shorter, smaller. Now, you did say that you've made changes of, I think, over 1,000 square feet, 1,189 square feet. Can you be more specific with what changed? Because I didn't have the before and after rendering, so I couldn't really see what changed. I know building coverage only changed a little bit, and the reason I'm asking is because we spent an hour at our hearing in December, and we were very specific about criteria 2, and I just don't know what's changed from a visual perspective, so I must be missing something.
Well, when you say what changed,
Where
as I
did the
indicated, the sideline setback to the east has not changed.
Okay.
The sideline setback on the west side is now 29 feet instead of 25 feet. So the building is at least 4 feet shorter than the previous building. I didn't,
Okay,
measure the whole building, but now it's, one corner's, that was formerly 25 is now 27, another corner that was 25 is now 29. So I think
so they,
the whole building is small. That's how we, and of course, it's all 3 levels, basement and the first 2 levels. That's where you get, it doesn't take much of a change to get down to 1,200 square feet,
Okay.
more or less.
okay, one more question. I noticed that the attic is, over the garage has changed from what was before a game room, and now it's called an attic. Is an attic still counted in gross floor area?
I believe if it's got ceiling height, it would be counted. I mean, as far as I know, we included the number in our
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
application.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Steve?
No, Bill's already attempted to answer the question I was going to ask.
All right,
The
Lee?
differences.
I just wanted to point out that on the plans prior, the house was in a different location.
Right.
So they've shifted the whole footprint of the house.
Well, except that the easterly sideline setback has remained 25 feet.
Yes,
the
exactly.
westerly side-
But they've shifted it forward, so that's fine. But I've also noticed that there was a decrease by 2 feet of the master, of the primary bedroom.
Right.
That might account for some of the differences in square footage in the gross floor area.
Paul, questions?
Let me just come back to that space over the garage then. We've gone from calling that a game room to attic storage. Is there any other change in that room?
Sorry, what? Is there any other change to that room?
Yes. Is it the same
Yeah, but
spot?
it's not going to be finished.
It's just not going to be finished?
That's correct.
It'll
So-
have heat and so forth?
No, it's not going to be finished.
So will it have heat?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it might be finished someday. They'd have to go get a building permit to finish it.
Uh-huh. I see. Okay. And as I look at your chart on gross floor area, I think you indicated you would come down by 1,200 square feet. But you're still at 6,554 square feet.
Right, that's correct.
And so before that, you were at 7,700 square feet?
Yes.
And at 7,700 square feet, it would be the largest house of the whole area that you're showing on Barcliff Avenue. As it is right now, it is the second largest house?
Right. And but, I mean, that's not a standard. I mean, in other words, if the house fits on the lot, which this house clearly does, because we're reducing our coverage from 8.7, which is already substantially below the maximum, to 8.4. So personally, I don't think it matters where we rank in the neighborhood.
He was just asking.
I'm just trying to clarify it, that's all.
Okay.
I mean, you provided a chart that showed this, I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? I think that's the only question I had.
Mr. Nixon, do you have questions? He doesn't. Mr. Atkins?
No questions.
And Mr. Veach?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Bill, it doesn't affect how I intend to vote or anything, but I just noticed there's a fairly significant sized tree that's there it's kind of next to the existing house, and it looks like that's not been chosen to be saved, and I was just curious if there was a reasoning for that.
Are the trees going to be retained?
What's that? Yeah, I mean, there were a number of trees that indicated on the landscape plan that were going to be retained, which I think is great, and I think it was an improvement. I was just curious why there's a really large, mature tree out there now that doesn't look to me like it would interfere with the construction of the house. I was just curious as to, but I guess I didn't really expect that you would have an answer to that, so.
Well, we haven't discussed the trees. I
So
mean,
maybe it could be saved? Maybe it could be saved?
Perhaps it could be saved.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
That's good. And I don't have any questions either, so Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave each seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
Paul?
All vote yes?
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Ed?
As one of the few guys who likes gambrels, I actually think it's a beautiful plan. It's a large lot. It's one of the larger lots in that area, and the house sits far back off of the streetscape. I think it's a beautiful house, and I think it'll fit in properly into the neighborhood, and I would support it.
And Mr. Veach?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the first time around, I indicated that I could probably support it. I think they've made some improvements. It's only a slight change, but I don't think it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood at all, and I will support it.
All right. And Steve?
No, I'm glad to see that, you were able to make a few concessions about the coverage and work things out with the neighbors. So I would support it.
And Lee?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues with the slight changes. I don't think it's going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay. Ginny?
I don't know about that. I went back and watched the hearing from December. We spent an hour, literally an hour, discussing the scale and mass of this house. Criteria 2 was specifically mentioned. I appreciate that a couple changes have been made. Frankly, I'm struggling. Is it enough, given how much we talked about it not fitting in the neighborhood at that size? I was a little disappointed when I saw that very little changed, but it is now not the largest house, according to your sheet, which it was last time. It's the second largest. And it is tucked in there. It's a nice plan, so those are my deliberations.
Okay. Mr. Nixon?
Well, compared to what we had before, I think the changes that have been made answered my concerns. 100%? No, but a lot. So is this substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? I don't think it is, because as has been mentioned by others, the way it's tucked in the back, it is not visible from the street. It's not visible from a number of the homes around for one reason or another. And the protection that Mr. Riley's client is willing to provide for a neighbor, I think is good faith, and I'll be voting for it.
And I will as well, and I think that the conditions that Attorney Litchfield outlined should be part and parcel of our
That's fine.
finding, if you would agree to that. And so we'll take a vote, and
Let me, if I can,
Please.
Madam Chair, let me just chime in. I also think that the changes that have been made are not huge, but they are in somewhat along the line of what we tried to suggest. So I will be voting in favor also.
sorry, Paul.
It's all
I didn't
right.
realize I
Not a
missed you
problem.
there. Yeah, I'm always thinking of you, though.
I know.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Fenwick, did you make your mind up?
Yeah, well, I said I was struggling, but.
Okay, you
I-
can struggle for a few more minutes.
Yeah, no, I think the additional concession of the trees, that screening was really important to the neighbor, and I had overlooked that, so I think I could support it.
All right, Paul?
Okay, I will move to approve the application as submitted with the standard conditions of all construction activity and vehicles to be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed, no work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only. Additionally,
I think that this is a large lot, and we have plenty of room. I think we should be able to work through the summertime.
Right, well, let's see what people think. Should they be able to work in the summertime? Let's just nod our heads. Who thinks they should be able to work in the summer? Does anyone? You two do? Anybody else? You do? So that's 3. I'll go along with that. So, Paul?
all right, so we'll, are you suggesting that we want to eliminate any of the, between June 30th and Labor Day? So exterior construction will be allowed, that no work, that will be permitted, they still have no work permitted on weekends.
That's
But
correct.
construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only,
That's also correct.
right? So exterior construction will be allowed between June 30th and Labor Day. And then additionally, that the applicant will plant and maintain a total of 16 green giant arborvitae along the property line in accordance with their agreement with the neighbor represented by Mr. Litchfield.
All right, thank you.
David seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All vote yes?
Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, we have 25-019, Charles and Jennifer Inglefield, care of Strong Tree Engineering, and this is about 25 Bobby's Lane. Do we have somebody here for this application? And that person is online. And first, we're going to have Sarah read the advertisement, and then we will get to the applicant.
Application number 25-019, Charles and Jennifer Inglefield, care of Strong Tree Engineering, P.O. Box 62, Sagamore Beach, 02562. Owners of property located at 25 Bobby's Lane, also shown in the town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 3C, Block 81, Lot E, AS2. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The proposed addition will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,280 square feet, 11.3%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,423 square feet, 12.6%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 11,330 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in an R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Okay, our applicant representative is online, DL, I believe. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, can you hear me?
Not loud, but clear.
I hardly ever hear that.
And we only see the top of your face, starting with your nose, so.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward, as you just
Can
stated.
you make your volume a little bit louder? Yeah, that'd be helpful.
I think that's about it for
Yeah,
me.
better, thank you. So
All right,
welcome.
I was kind of surprised when we went to ZBA, just, I've been doing this over 40 years, and I understand we're under the, the total lot with, 20,000 square feet in the R20 zone there, but, we're conforming all other ways. We're inside the setbacks and we're still under the coverage. It pretty much goes along with what's in that neighborhood. I personally was out there a couple times. But that's why we're talking to you. Our plan, there you go, you have it on the screen. It fits in there pretty well. And if anybody's been out there, that's a lawn there. There's nothing really covering it to the street or to the side. So any questions you all have?
So we just have to run through the applicable criteria. Do you believe that the size of the... Oh, I'm sorry. Do you believe the size of the site is, is adequate for this project?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's compatible with neighboring properties?
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't have any increase in any nonconformities? The site is suitable, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the impact of scale, sighting, and mass on neighborhood visual character, including views, vistas, and streetscapes? You feel you meet that criteria?
Yes, ma'am, and mostly because on that side of the property, there are trees over there, and then if you would, if you look on our survey, the contours go up, it's a fairly good gradient uphill from that, so it really kind of protects it from being hidden from the people in the back, and then, of course, it's just the street on the front there.
Okay, and so you know closer to the neighbors, you know closer to the road, and this is about putting a bathroom in. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make that known. Seeing none, we have one note from our health agent, and that was received on May 6, 2025, and she has no concerns about this application. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, questions from the board? Are there any? No. Okay, Paul?
I have no questions. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. So deliberations. Ginny?
Great project. I think the addition on the side makes complete sense. I love the pool. I know they're not here for the pool, but I would support it.
Very good. And Steve?
Yeah, same thing. I think this is pretty harmless and not detrimental to anybody.
And Lee?
I agree with my colleagues. It meets our criteria, and it's a great project.
And Mr. Nixon?
I agree. This is not in any way substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Mr. Acton?
Yes, meets our special permit criteria, and I would be voting yes.
Mr. Veach?
And I agree with all previous.
We'll go back to Paul for his opinion and then the motion.
I agree with my colleagues. I will also vote in the affirmative. I'll move to approve the application as submitted with, I think, the standard conditions. All construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30 and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes
As
yes.
do I, it's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you for coming. All right. Next, we have application 25-018, 200 Meeting House Realty Trust. And this is represented by Attorney William Riley, and this is for a variance. So Sarah, please read the advertisement.
Application number 25-018, Chatham 200 Meeting House Realty Trust, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 200 Meeting House Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4F, Block 43, Lot T25. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance from the required setback for stairs that were constructed 1.3 feet from the southerly abutter where a 5-foot setback is required. The property contains 24,655 square feet within the industrial zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Riley?
Good afternoon, Bill Riley on behalf of Molly McGregor, the owner of the property at 200 Meeting House Road. This is a variance request, and for those of you who are familiar with those, we usually are bending ourselves double trying to get the lot to be some sort of unique situation. But I learned, as a result of research, which is always an amazing thing, what we can learn, is that there has been a carve-out by our Supreme Judicial Court and followed by the Appeals Court in several decisions where safety is an issue. So, although these stairs are not required by the building code, the property owner felt that having a second means of egress from the building was important, from the second floor. If there should be a fire that would block them from going down to the first floor. The building had been built, so it was built right to the setback lines on both sides. There's a house in front of it, there's no, well, not a house, there's an office building in front of it that prevents the staircase from being located on the Meeting House Road side of the property. On the back side of the property, we have required parking spaces that can't be blocked by the staircase. They're required by the planning board and site plan approval. So they located the stairs on the side within the setback. And what our courts have found is that without necessarily regard to the lot itself, if there are safety considerations, that qualifies as a hardship. The most recent case was decided in the appeals court, and it had to do with a shipyard, boatyard up in Salem, Mass. And and so it was a large area, had a large open space in it. And there was an old Quonset hut where they used to do their marine repair. And that was located more or less in the middle of the lot. And they wanted to remove that building, have a more modern building where they could do more work on larger boats. And they proposed to put the building within the sideline setback of the lot, even though the open space was over 150 feet wide and provided parking and other space. The justification for the grant of the variance was that the boatyard used a thing called a travel lift. I don't know how familiar you are with boatyards. Travel lift is generally a large mechanical device they use to pick up boats and move them around. So it's a rectangle frame with a couple of straps, and they can pick up large boats and move them. And the applicant in that case said that if there was more room for the travel lift to operate, it would be safer for patrons of the boatyard. And so the judge in that instance, the land court judge, found that that qualified as a hardship and granted the variance. The abutter appealed, who lived with the next door neighbor, and so it went up to the appeals court. And the appeals court said, well, our Supreme Judicial Court has determined in other instances that safety, without necessarily any regard to the shape of the lot, but the safety having to do with the use of the property can be a hardship. And they referenced the case from 1972, Josephs versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of Brookline, where there was a loading dock that had a required height of 14 feet, and it would be a very unsafe thing because it would be a very steep slant down to the grade, and it would be unsafe for people to walk on. And so that has sort of established the idea that safety is a hardship. And neither the Josephs case nor the case of Furlong versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of Salem referenced, the shape of the lot. They just pointed out the way the lot was used qualified for a variance because the way the lot was proposed, the way the buildings were proposed to be put on the property would be safer for the patrons of the yard. And that's kind of in line with, there's another case called Marashalian versus Newburyport. And that was an instance where they allowed a hotel to be built, and it was short 595 parking spaces. Ordinarily, you say, well, there wasn't enough room And not having enough room is not a hardship that arises out of the soil shape and topography of the lot. They said, oh, but it would make the project uneconomical. And so they granted a variance. So what we have here is, if you've seen the building, it's a personal storage building. And there's one staircase from the second floor down to the first floor, then out onto the property. If there were to be a fire that would prevent people from going down that one staircase, they would be trapped up there. And so the owner felt it was really important to provide a second means of egress. There's correspondence from Bob Stello, who's the neighbor, immediately adjacent, and he has no objection to this. And where, there's no mass, so to speak, in the staircase, it's just a open frame staircase. I think that you could say that, it's just an open frame staircase, that where safety is an issue, you could find that with the location of the parking in the rear and the building that's located in the front, the only place to put these stairs would be on one side or the other. And the building was built to the setback line, which, in retrospect, perhaps shouldn't have been done. But where safety by itself is a hardship, I think you could grant the variance, because it's clearly not a substantial derogation of the purpose and intent of the bylaw. I mean, as I say, it's just an open frame staircase. And and not only is it not a detriment to the public good, but we think that from a safety point of view, it's an advantage. And so we'd ask you to consider that as a hardship and to grant the variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, I will read the correspondence. There are two. First, we have a note from our health agent, and she tells us on May 6, 2025, that this application, will be heard at the May 8th. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong part. I have no concerns regarding the setback variance. Robert Stello tells us in his own handwriting, so we'll see if I can read it. May 6, 2025, that he wants to express his favorable agreement for allowing the stairway located at 200 Meeting House to remain in its present location. Being a builder, I feel just for safety reasons, it's important to have an egress options. I realize we have zoning regulations and the stairways increasing on these requirements. I, as the most affected by being the adjacent abutter, feel the structure serves a purpose and does not harm our property. The structure is well-built and adds to the overall look of the new building. The staircase is basically there for an emergency use. I support this appeal as a builder. Sincerely, Robert Stello. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that's opposed to this or has a specific question? No. All right. Questions from the board? Mr. Veach?
No, I have no questions.
Oh, actually, I wanted to go to our building commissioner because I know he has some opinions and comment on this. Please, Jay Briggs.
I'll try not to put my opinion in there, but I looked at the building code when this came to light, when we got the final as-built, and I don't see that it's required by the building code, as Mr. Riley stated. And the building code is based around safety. So you can say that it's a safety issue, but building code is there for the purpose of safety primarily. If the safety was a concern, the building could have been shrunk 4 feet, so you could have fit it in there and then still met the setback. Or I still think that it could possibly go at the back of the building, the west side of the building, towards Meeting House and meet a setback. It should have been identified on the site plan that we received when we permitted the project. It was not shown on the site plan. And that's all I wanted to say.
So when was the building built? Do you have that information?
I didn't bring that
No,
with
but it was
It was,
within,
it was just recently completed.
It was
Okay.
just completed,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're,
yeah.
they're looking for the certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
And I went out and did a site visit and happened to see the stairway.
okay, very
Yeah,
good.
Jay wouldn't issue the CO until we filed this application.
Okay. Ed, questions?
Yeah. This is one lot, and is 200 Meeting House and the storage building the same owner?
Sorry, what?
Are both buildings owned by the same person?
Yes.
So, why couldn't the staircase just go towards the 200 Meeting House Road? It seems like it could have easily been put onto that property instead of on the side. It could easily, I guess there's no answer. The next question, I guess, is if it's just for emergency egress, is it going to be alarmed and, you know, have a typical, you know, to be used in emergency only and be an alarmed door? Or is it going to be used for other things potentially?
My understanding is it's going to be alarmed.
It is. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Nixon?
I have no questions.
Paul, questions?
Well, just by way of a comment, it would be helpful if we got this memo in advance of the hearing, because and frankly, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could come up with a solution that would not create a disaster here, because clearly there's no qualification for a variance under any of the standard conditions. At least I don't think so, given the topography, given the configuration of the lot. It doesn't fit any of the normal standards. And I had somewhat the same question about why it couldn't simply go towards 200 Meeting House Road. I realized that it might not be attractive or be exactly where you want it, but
Well, there are parking spaces in the front they wanted to preserve as well, including a handicap spot.
there are parking places. You mean on the Pine Tree side of it?
On the Meeting House Road side.
On the Meeting House Road?
If you look in the site plan, there's a handicap spot, right, I think where you're suggesting it would go.
Well, there's plenty of room to create parking on the Meeting House side, right? Yeah, okay. So anyhow, so I haven't looked at these cases. I assume what you're saying is correct, and I have no reason to doubt it. And I guess that's an exception that you would provide for a dimensional variance. So I guess it answers my questions.
Okay, Lee? Questions?
Would it be possible to create a new door on the back side of the building and put the stairs on the back side?
Well, we run into the parking spaces that are required by the planning board.
This is the plan that went to the building department for the building permit that shows the parking spaces at the Commerce Park side for the unit, as well as the parking spaces for the building on the Meeting House Road side.
Okay. Is that answered? Okay, Steve, questions?
I think my question was probably answered by Jay. I was going to ask if this stairway was built as part of the original, or under the original building permit with the building, or if this was some sort of an afterthought that had to be permitted on its own. And it kind of sounds like
The latter?
second.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was, you know, after the building was built, they realized there was no second means of egress, and so that's when they came up with the idea of sticking the stairs there.
And Ginny, questions?
Yeah, that was actually my question, because this is what was submitted to the planning board. It never needed to go to zoning because it met the 5-foot setback, right? And the
Right.
stairs are not there, so it was never, it was an afterthought. So a question is, would the planning board, I mean, can you just clarify, when you say they're requiring these parking, are they like literally requiring there to be?
I didn't go through the criteria, but the planning board the zoning bylaw has a requirement for parking spaces.
Right.
Even on based on the square feet of the building, and I assume that
Okay.
those are the spaces that were required.
So if stairs had not been an afterthought and had been put on the side where that, like number 7 is, the planning board may have approved it still. Just, so they maybe could still go in the front, I guess, is my question for you. Okay, thank you.
So, I just want to clarify, and I'm not accusing you or anything, but I didn't notice that you gave us any argument whatsoever as to number 1 in the variance requirements, owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district. I just want to clarify, we didn't hear anything, did we? Did I miss
That's correct,
it?
because the cases that I cited, particularly the Furlong case, which is a 2016 case, the court found that there was a hardship
Yep.
based on safety without any regard to those criteria, soil
So,
shape and
without any
topography.
regard to any of them? So I understand, I just wanted to make sure I understood your argument.
no, that's-
Yeah, and when you tell us that it's a fire issue, you know, that makes us all, now we have to lay awake at night wondering if we're gonna read in the paper that somebody got caught and burned to death because we said no to this. You know, that doesn't sit right. I don't like that. I'm just wondering why they didn't just put the stairs on in the first place and make the building a little smaller and everybody would have been happy. You know, it's disappointing. Can you agree with that it's disappointing?
Yeah, well, you know, you're supposed to think these things through before you start,
Right, yeah.
you know? Was
And-
it
and if
measure
we say
twice-
no to
Measure
this-
twice, cut once kind of thing, you know, I understand. But
Realistically, if we say no, then you're gonna have to take those stairs down and then figure out a plan B? Does that sound right?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay. And also, you realized afterwards, oh, we don't have a way to get out, but you also weren't under the impression you had to have a separate exit because the laws don't require in this particular building, right?
Yeah, they knew from their architect that they did not require a
Okay.
second means of egress.
Yeah, but then they went and put the stairs on anyway,
Well,
right? I mean, they just did.
they were concerned.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Jay, please, Jay Briggs, Building Commissioner.
There are 2 means of egress on the building. They're on the front of the building. There's a set of double doors, and then there's a single door. So the building has 2 means of egress. This is just an additional egress that they put in.
So we can sleep.
Well, I'm just, you know, like you say, if something happened, but what if the fire blocks that stairway too, and you needed another stairway on the other side,
we-
one out the
But if-
west, you know, I mean,
But
when
if
you
there's
stop.
2, then that's good to know.
It meets the
Helpful.
building code as far as I can tell.
Right.
Oh, but
Okay, yes. Mr. Acton has another comment, so let's,
So is there
Question.
2 sets of stairs to the second floor, or just 1 set of stairs?
One set of stairs.
1 set of stairs, 2 means of egress.
Right.
2 egress doors on the first floor.
Yeah, it's only one set
Thank
of
you.
stairs from the second floor.
there's 2 ways to get out.
If you're on the first floor, there's 2 ways to get out.
Okay,
If you're on the second floor, there's only 1 way to get out.
okay, but that sounds normal. Yeah, it does. Yeah,
The
please.
travel distance from the furthest part to go down the one stairway and out the front door is 100 feet. The design engineer said the maximum allowable is 250 feet, so it falls well within the egress travel distance required by the building code.
So they didn't need to do that. Okay, just wanted to clarify. I didn't say I was going to vote no. But anybody else have any? No? So we'll close the hearing, Paul?
Well, just
Yeah,
before
please.
we do that, I had one other question to Bill. So, Bill, are you saying that when we talk about the criteria for the variance, that the first criteria, under the cases that you've come up with, the first criteria is not an issue?
It wasn't an issue for the courts that decided those cases. The first case was decided by the SJC. Second case was decided by the appeals court, citing the Joseph's case, which was the 1972 case.
But was it not an issue because there were circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography not generally affecting other such land?
No,
So it wasn't just the question of whether there was a a hardship. It was also,
The description of the property in the Salem case, which is the 2016 case, where they put the building within the setback, so it would have more open space to operate the travel lift. It was clear from the description of the property that this was a large boatyard that had a space 150 feet clear where they could work on boats and move boats around with the travel lift. But they put the building within the setback, and the reason they cited that was they thought it was safer for the patrons with this travel lift moving around. And that the court supported that. I mean, it was clear from the description that there was nothing about the property, as we typically talk about, soil shape or topography. This was strictly a safety issue. So the difference here is, and this is something I know you've heard from Mr. Ford, because I've heard him say it, when you're talking about a dimensional variance, the courts have an easier time finding relief.
Hardship, it's hardship for that one. And we're talking about number one, the soil conditions things. Paul was asking you, how are you getting away with not answering to number one? And you're saying that case didn't address number one, so we don't have to, because there's a safety issue, right?
Right, so
Okay.
what the court said
Very
is,
good.
the court said, the safety issue makes it a hardship.
Yeah, but we still didn't address number one, but that's okay. We get it.
Okay.
We get it.
all right, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All vote yes.
Jenny votes yes.
As do I. So, let's see. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I guess I will, given the overall concept of, we've got a staircase which is very usable and obviously will provide some safety attraction. Do I like the whole situation and the way it arrived? No. But based on what I'm hearing and based on the case laws provided by Mr. Riley, I will vote favorably.
David Veach.
I agree with Paul, and I will accept Mr. Riley's reasoning. I think that there is a possibility that this staircase could be moved, but it would be an expense to do that, and I don't think that, and moved in such a way that it could meet the setbacks, but I think that where it's located, it's done, it is safer than if it were not there. The neighbor doesn't have a problem with it. I can find that it meets the criteria and will support it.
Ed, if you were voting?
Yeah, I guess despite the bad taste in my mouth, I probably would vote for it. I feel like it could be moved, and I feel that the location it's in now creates another safety issue, because when I was out there, you can hardly get around it. And there's a 5-foot setback there for a reason, and now this large steel staircase is, it doesn't totally block you getting around the building, but it certainly would slow people down if they were trying to get away in a hurry. But given the fact that it's already there, it does improve the safety. My practical solution would be to grant the variance.
Ginny?
Well, I think that we've established that you could move it west or east, but I am moved by the fact that the owner didn't have to add it, and he did, for safety reasons. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, he built it and then he couldn't get his occupancy because he didn't have it and he stuck it on the side. So, and Mr. Riley's case law, 1972, and then a more recent one, 2016, and I want to sleep at night and not worry about it, so I would support it.
You will? Okay. Steve, would you?
No.
Okay.
I think because it's unpermitted. It's a very well-built stair. And whoever built it should have known better that they needed a building permit to do something like that. And I think it does create a hazard to get around. If the fire truck pulled in the back of that building, they wouldn't be able to get around that side of the building. So I think it creates a safety hazard rather than prevent one. So, and the stairway can be installed somewhere else on the building.
Lee?
Well, if I were voting, I would probably approve it as well. I don't think it meets our criteria for a variance, honestly. But I'm in favor of a safety measure. And as Ginny said, the owner built it, you know, in good faith and with the best intentions, so.
Okay, Mr. Nixon?
Well, as Mark Carney said to Mr. Trump, never. This is another good example of an error. And instead of correcting the error and doing the right thing, let's go to the SAPs on the Zoning Board of Appeal, and maybe if we get the tears flowing down their cheeks, they'll let you get away with it. No, as we just heard from Steve and Ed mentioned this, that thing is a safety hazard where it is. It easily can be unbolted. You put a new pad either in the front or the back. And I parked on the Meeting House side, and a lot of room between myself and the building. There's tons of room to put it there. As far as the back, what you were talking about, you know, with all those barriers that have been put up there, you could fit this in between. You wouldn't have to move any parking spaces. So I just can't see that this deserves any kind of a variance. And we should say no. Now, if you worry about safety, move it, because it'll be a lot safer in the front or the back. Thank you.
Yep, and I'm not going to vote in favor of it. So do you want us to vote, or, I mean, I can tell you why, but everybody that has said no, Mr. Nixon and Steve, I agree with them. And now I'm not going to sleep because there's not any room to get around it. So I'm going to pick that one.
I think what we'll do is we'll withdraw without prejudice, please, and circle the wagons and figure out what we're going to do.
Great, great, good choice. Thank you.
I'll move to grant the motion to withdraw without prejudice.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Thank you for coming. All right. Moving along. Next, we have 157 Sam Ryder Road, Faye Anderson and Brock Bobasink, 25-020. Sarah, when you're ready.
Application number 25-020, Faye Anderson and Brock Bobby Sink, owners of property located at 157 Sam Ryder Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 6F, Block 21, Lot M16. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The proposed addition will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,052 square feet, 7.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,105 square feet, 8.2%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 13,557 square feet, where 30,000 square feet is required in the R30 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Welcome, Faye Anderson, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah, so welcome.
Thank you.
I think we received some written findings from you, if I'm not mistaken, on this one, did we?
I don't know what a written finding is. Sorry.
You passed something in with some words on it about this application? Yeah? Didn't you?
Is it this?
Yeah, you did. You did that.
Yes.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
And so we all received that, and so that has the criteria. Do you want to go over the ones like 1, 2, and 4 perhaps? And just tell us why your application meets those criteria?
Sure. We are doing a small mudroom, and it is a mere 0.4% that we are adding to this, a whole 53 square feet to make this tiny little mudroom. It's officially 4 by 13, and it's sandwiched in between the house and the front setback line, but staying within the parameters of not needing a variance. And we are not gonna impact our neighbors in any way. You basically won't even notice this happened because we have way too large of Leland cypress trees in front of our house that block seeing the front of our house anyway. But it also can't really be seen from any of the neighbors, and it's, again, very small. It's not gonna make our house look much bigger at all because, again, you won't barely notice it. And we'll easily fill it up and wish we made it bigger.
Yeah. All right.
And what was the other one you wanted me to speak about? 4, was it 4? We're not gonna impact the environment.
No.
There's a little bit of plantings there right now that I'm just gonna relocate in the back of our yard. So I'm not
No, I
taking out
think-
any trees, I'm just moving them around.
I think you did a great job. Thank you. Plus, again, we have the written findings, so we'll let you off the hook.
Okay.
And is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, I will read the correspondences. We have a note from the health agent, as usual, and then someone named Falwell. Let's see. The health agent has no concerns, and she told us that on May 6th. And then Mary Falwell, she owns the property at 157 Ryder Road, Sam Ryder Road.
No, that's us.
Sorry? Oh, 38 West Pond in Chatham, I apologize.
Yeah.
There are butters to 157.
Yes.
And they say that you've improved the property tremendously, and they have no objection to the proposed addition. They're in full support of your application. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? No. Are there any questions from the board? No.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Okay. Deliberations. Dave Veach, we'll just go this way.
This is certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It's actually an improvement, and looks like it belongs there, so I'll support it.
Very good. Ed?
I agree. I think it'll be a nice little mudroom, and I agree, you'll probably think it's too small and not too long of time.
Meets all our criteria.
Yep. Paul?
How can we deny something whose email is phishing Fay? Huh? I don't think we can.
Well, we need it for all our boots,
There you go.
because we're
Yep.
mostly commercial fishing family.
I see no
Wow.
problem. This is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
All right.
And, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ginny?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lee.
Yeah, meets our criteria, and I love a covered entry, so I think that it's a great plan.
Isn't that got a fancy name? Portico, or, right? Covered entry?
That is,
No, isn't it portico? I learned that from you.
Portico.
that is another word for it, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay, Steve?
It won't be feeling fancy when you go in. It'll have a lot of boots.
No,
Steve?
I think this is a fine product. You should have asked maybe for the bigger one. It's always easier to go
Well,
smaller.
I have to tell you, there was a lot of fighting in our home, trying to decide what to do, but doing it on the other side of the house made more sense because we could make it bigger, but I don't want to limit the possibilities of a future, like, garage dash bigger mudroom scenario on the other side, so.
Okay.
But this makes sense for now.
Good.
And Lee?
No issues, meets our criteria.
All right, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I don't see a need for any conditions.
No? Okay.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Now,
evening.
no conditions mean we can work through the summer?
Yes.
Okay, great.
You can start as soon as this application is approved officially
Right.
through the channels.
Great, thank you.
Not tomorrow, but,
I know. Thank you.
okay. So, now we have 40 Marketplace, Jeffrey S. Dykens Revocable Trust of 2017, care of William M. Norcross Esquire. Sarah?
Application number 25-021, the Jeffrey S. Dykens Revocable Trust of 2017, care of James M. Norcross Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 40 Marketplace, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 8E, Block 1P, Lot C78. The applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling in a GB3 zone which requires the grant of a special permit. The proposed lot coverage is 2,490 square feet, 23.5%, where 60% is the maximum allowed. The lot is conforming with 10,600 square feet of buildable upland, where 10,000 square feet is required in the GB3 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Sections 3C, 4C, 26, and 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
Welcome, Attorney Norcross.
Thank you. Jamie Norcross representing Jeff and Julie Dykens, who are in the audience today. So this is a vacant lot that has its frontage off of the cul-de-sac on Marketplace. It's a panhandle lot. It actually abuts Jeff and Julie's house at 1745 Main Street. And they've owned this lot for about 20 years, but they've taken some time in figuring out what exactly they wanted to do with it. But they've decided now they'd like to go forward to construct a single-family home on the property. As you heard from Sarah, because it's located in the GB3 zoning district, that requires a special permit under your bylaw. The proposed structure will meet all dimensional setbacks. We're within the, it's actually because it's a GB zoning district, it's a lot coverage requirement, which we meet that. Our actual building coverage in terms of the house itself, as opposed to lot coverage, which is driveways and parking areas, our building coverage for the house is less than 10%. So it's a modest structure. It would be a two-bedroom home. And so as it is located in general business, there was some consideration to, is there a commercial use for the property? But the lot itself really doesn't lend itself to a commercial use. Given its location, given its configuration, there's not a lot of space for parking other than in conjunction with a single-family home. So Jeff and Julie really felt that a house is the best fit for this property, even though it's in a GB zoning district. It does have a number of residential structures in the immediate vicinity, so it's really a mixed area between residential and commercial properties. So moving along to the criteria, it's a little bit different, again, because it's under Section 8 of your zoning bylaw. Number one is adequacy of the site in terms of size of the proposed use. Again, I'd suggest the site is adequate. The house meets all dimensional setbacks. The total building coverage for the house is 9.9%. Which would be actually well below if this was in an R20 zone, for example, which would be up to 15%. So it's even smaller than what you would see on a lot of residential zoning districts. There is also sufficient area on the site for adequate parking, as you see on the site plan prepared by David Clark, for use as a single-family dwelling. Number two, suitability of the site for the proposed use. Again, we believe the use of this site as a single-family home is adequate, and we also think it's probably the best use for this property as opposed to some sort of commercial use. Its lack of visibility from the street, narrow access from a panhandle off the Marketplace, cul-de-sac, and limitations on site for adequate parking for commercial use really lend itself to the best use as a single-family home. Number three, impact on traffic flow and safety. Because this will be a house, there's no negative impact on traffic flow and safety. Four, impact on neighborhood visual character. Again, we believe there'll be no negative impact on neighborhood visual character. The proposed house is modest in size, is located in an area where it's not highly visible from the street or from many neighboring properties. I did provide a gross floor area analysis. I did not include any of the commercial structures because that's really an apples to oranges comparison. But in terms of the residential structure, the numbers are certainly compatible and appropriate. One subdivision that abuts is Rumson Way, and if you look at the homes there, it's very much in line with the size of the structures on that particular subdivision. Number five, adequacy of methods of sewage disposal, source of water and drainage. The house will be connected to town water and town sewer and has adequate, or will have adequate drainage. It will have all necessary utilities, and because of its use as a single-family home, I don't think there are any specific public services required for the property. Noise and litter, again, single-family home, so no issues or concerns relative to noise and litter. Compatibility of the proposed use with surrounding land uses. Again, while it's in a general business zone, The neighborhood really is a mixture of both residential and commercial uses, so we think it's certainly appropriate and compatible. Impact on neighborhood, on the natural environment, no negative impact on the natural environment, and it's not a formula business, so that's not applicable. So again, we think it's a reasonable proposal. It's a modest structure for the property. It fits on the property, and we think it'll be a good use for this property, and certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Yes, sir. This is in favor, just reminding you.
I know we might political opponent, but.
All right, no, wait till you get to the mic.
Sorry, I don't break on this thing. All right, so I wish one of your criteria was what the applicants have done to benefit the community. The Dykens have done nothing but benefit this community, so I would like to speak in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishes to speak in favor, either here or on Microsoft Teams? Seeing none, I will read the two letters that we have. One is from the health agent and one is from HBDC. The health agent tells us on May 6th that the property will be attached to the municipal sewer, and the 2 bedrooms meet the requirement, and she has no concerns. Now we have a note from, let's see, HBDC, the Historic Business District Commission. And on April 16th, they met. They rendered the following decision. They voted 4-0 approving the construction and conditions that the applicant shall return with a landscape and hardscape plan. The corner board shall be 5.5 inches and the trim shall be 4.5 inches. And any changes have to then get approved with a certificate of appropriateness that they require. That concludes the correspondences. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a question? No. Any questions from the board? Well, we'll go through it. David Veach, questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Acton?
No questions.
Mr. Nixon?
No questions.
Mr. Semple?
Yes, I do have some questions. I guess one question I have is, what is the use at 20 and 30 Marketplace? Are those both commercial at this point?
30 is the building right in front, I believe. That's
I
a
know.
mixture. That's mixed use. That's, I believe, commercial on the first floor and has an apartment or 2 on the second floor. And that 20 Marketplace is actually a single-family home.
Okay. What's going to happen to the access on the easement? Is that going to remain?
I believe so at this point, yes, the access. Some of the vegetation you see there would have to get moved back a bit or cut, obviously, in terms of fitting vehicles down there. But I think the intent would be to use the easement that's in place.
Would you, given the height of the structure, would there be any ability to see the house looking from Marketplace over 30 to the height? Is that profile going to be above the roof line?
I don't have an answer to that, Paul. My gut reaction is no, but I don't. I mean, because the grade is lower on the Dykens property than it is on 30 Marketplace.
I think it is lower. I think that's correct. I think those are the only questions I had. Oh, no, let me ask one other question. Is there anything that prevents access to the property from the Dykens' other property coming up from the backside? In other words, can you just put a driveway in there and have access to the house?
I suppose they could, yeah. I mean, as long as they continue to own both, there's nothing that prevents it.
Okay, thank you.
Lee?
No questions.
Steve?
No further questions.
All right, and Jenny?
No questions.
All right, I don't have any questions either. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave each seconds and votes yes.
Vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Lee?
I think this is a great project. It's a modest home. There are other, it's a very private location too. There's other residential houses nearby. I didn't realize it was the Dykens property, but that's great. So I think it meets our criteria.
Steve?
I think it's a good project. It's a good use of the property there and make a little Dykens compound.
Ginny?
I have nothing else to add. I agree with my colleagues.
And David Veach?
Well, yeah, unlike some of our recent experience, this is an example of where granting a special permit for residential use in the business zone makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons that Jamie has pointed out. So it certainly is not substantially detrimental in any way. It meets all of our criteria, and I will be happy to support it.
And Ed, would you?
I would. It's interesting where the only place the house can be placed is really in a residential area, even though the access is more of a commercial area. But by the time you get to the placement of the house, it makes sense to have residential there, in my opinion. So I believe it meets our criteria, and just a warning to anyone out on the property, it is full of ticks. I can vouch for that.
Oh, that's not good. Mr. Nixon?
Yeah, it certainly is not detrimental to the neighborhood. I give the Dykens credit for tackling the project. It's, you need real vision, I think, which I don't have, to look at that and say, oh, yeah. So I think I can't wait to see the finished product.
Yeah, and it looks like a good place to put your extra family members. And I think that's a great idea. And it would be silly to put a business or a mixed use in that spot, because who would ever go there? Who would know? So, yeah, so they're doing what they can with what they have. So, Paul?
Yeah, in terms of my view on the thing, I would suggest that it's different from some other proposals we've had for residential in a business zone, in part because I don't know how the lot was originally approved from a commercial viewpoint, because it would be almost impossible to get to use from a commercial viewpoint. And it hasn't been used for commercial viewpoint in a number of years. So I think in this situation, it's not a commercial lot that can be developed well to provide the kind of income we want. And I think as a result, it makes sense to approve a residential in a business zone in this situation. So I see it as different.
And a motion?
I will move, let me see, have we moved to, yeah, we have moved to do that. So I'm going to move to approve the application as submitted. And I guess the question is conditions. When do we plan to do the construction at this location?
It's kind of an unknown
Couple of
start
years,
date.
yeah. I don't see, we haven't had any comment from the person at 30, right? I mean, that's the person that's closest to any construction that's
That's
going to go
the
in.
30, and that's the commercial apartment.
Right,
And then
right.
I think the Dykens are probably the most affected with the property they currently own. So I think, yeah, I don't think the conditions are necessary in this particular instance.
Yeah, and
All right.
I don't either.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Jeannie votes yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, 44 Waterview Circle, a deck and screen porch, 25-025. Whenever Sarah's ready.
Application number 25-025, De La Martis Realty Trust, care of Mark Tazio, Esquire, 175 Derby Street, Suite 30, Hingham, Mass. 02043. Owner of property located at 44 Waterview Circle, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map, 3D, Block 64E, Lot J9. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing deck and construction of a new deck and screen porch. The existing dwelling is non-conforming and that it is located 26.1 feet from the top of bank. The proposed deck and screen porch will be non-conforming and that they will be located 26.1 feet from the top of bank where a 50-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,556 square feet, 17.1%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,710 square feet, 18.25%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming and that it contains 14,959 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protected Bylaw.
Welcome, counsel.
Thank you. Good evening. Mark Taccio. I represent the De Leonardis Realty Trust. They're the property owners of 44 Waterview Circle. I think Ms. Clark laid out the two nonconformities that will be altered and changed here, which require a special permit under Section 5 of your zoning bylaw. Those are, one, the lot coverage. The existing lot coverage is, one moment.
2,556 square feet.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be a 1.15 percentage change, and that is only due to the fact that the deck that is going to be reconstructed is going to be roofed, and there's going to be a seasonal screened-in porch there. That's just by definition that adds to the building coverage. And the other nonconformity will be when the deck is reconstructed, it will be placed back in the exact same building footprint, and currently there is a 26.1 foot setback to the Conservancy District, where a 50-foot setback is required. So it would just be the exact same conditions once the deck is reconstructed. I know it's the end of a long agenda, so I can run through the 12 criteria, or I can just refer to my letter, but I'm happy to do so if you'd like.
You can skip it. I've gotten authorization for that by somebody higher than myself. So,
Thank
we will
you.
now say, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor? If so, please make it known. No. I will read the letters. We have 3. We have a note from our health agent, as usual. She reviewed it. The septic tank appears to be just outside the footprint of the screened porch, and the proposed slab under the porch must not encroach on the septic tank. Access to the tank must be available. The location of the tank should be marked prior to construction. So just make sure they do that.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. And then we have a note from Conservation. They continued it to May 7th for revisions as requested. And the project will be revised, and it will meet the standards, and that was on April 23rd, 2025, that we got that note. Then there's something that I don't know if I need to read.
It was just from the collector's office, which Mark is aware of, and he's made the owners aware.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
That concludes our correspondences. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams who wishes to speak against or has a question? No. All right. Are there any questions from the board? No.
I'll
Okay.
move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Vote yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Ginny?
I think it's a very nice project. It's, as Mark mentioned, a little bit over the building coverage. It already was, but it's so modest that I believe it meets our criteria, and I would support it.
Yeah. Steve?
I think it's fine. It's not creating a further, impact on the environment, so it's a no-brainer.
Lee?
I agree with my colleagues. I think it's a great project.
And Paul?
We're particularly good at no-brainers. I would say, yes, this is clearly a no-brainer. Thank you.
And David Nixon?
It's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Ed?
Yeah, meets our criteria, and I would vote for it.
Yeah, and I think having a screen porch in that location would be a definite plus.
Now, I'm going to walk the line and call it de minimis. But, a lot of times, just so you know, I know this might be your first time here, when you're going over the over, causes us concern. But given that I just called it de minimis, it's not as concerning. So this is going to get approved, and we're happy to meet you. So, Paul?
Likewise. Thank you.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I would think the only condition may be that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would just request that you all waive the summertime no construction condition that I
I did not make that a condition.
understood.
Yep,
Thank you.
okay.
Just wanted to
So-
confirm. Thank you.
We waived it, okay.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
David Nixon,
I vote yes.
All
Paul,
votes yes.
Ginny,
Any votes yes?
as do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Have a good night.
Nice to meet you. And, well, we did all right. Time is it?
Time to move at 25 after or
You
so?
move to adjourn?
What time is it?
Wait, you want to stay longer? No. 5:23.
I'll move to adjourn at 5:26.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Ed Acton votes yes.
Yes.
All votes yes.
Ginny
Lee-
votes yes.
But it's
votes
only
yes.
5:23, so I would make that correction.
Look at the official time.
So it is officially 5:23, and we are adjourned.
Ooh.
All right. Very good. Good night, Chatham.